All right, good Monday, Tuesday morning, everybody. Current time 7:11. You're right here on 5 Plus. We're going to track these storms for you here exclusively on 5 Plus. Meteorologist Stephen Elmore in studio with me this morning. We've also got Joshua Weisel and the 5 News Stormchaser. Together, we're collectively going to track this storm on all fronts to keep everybody safe. Now, a few housekeeping notes to pass along to you. Things are going to get a little interesting here on 5 Plus as we are live also on CBS this morning, and we're going to have to break away and go do some live cut-ins there. Don't go anywhere. You'll still see live radar here. We just got to pop over there to on air and cover those cut-ins, and then we'll be right back here tracking this line of storms. So as we prepare to do that, I'm going to leave you with live radar. I'm going to let you know there's a couple of things to note. These orange polygons, this is your severe thunderstorm warning, and the red polygons, those are our tornado warnings where rotation is strong enough to present an actual tornado threat at any moment. These are now moving into our neck of the woods from Delaware, Adair, even parts of Sequoia County, now under that severe thunderstorm warning. The reason that was issued, damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour. The threat should slowly be weakening over the next couple of hours. With that said, it doesn't go from 60 to 0 immediately. So we're going to have some severe weather potential over the next few minutes. We'll be right back here on 5 Plus here in just a few. All right, good morning, everybody here on 5 Plus. Thanks for sticking with us through that CBS cut-in. We'll have to do those a few more times this morning. Here's some updates to pass along to you. Radar is starting to get pretty busy. It's been busy the last couple of hours, but our line of storms now moving further east, and we do have severe thunderstorm warnings pretty much for all of eastern Oklahoma. It's kind of tough to see, but you're going to want to look at these orange polygons right here. This is where we expect some damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour. What's happening with this storm system as it's approaching us, as expected, it is weakening. There's not much instability in the atmosphere. There was back off towards the west. As these storms are approaching us, there's not as much. Instability, you can think of that as storm fuel. These storms need it to become surface-based, and when that happens, you have a tornado risk. Right now, it's not zero, but the further east these storms move, the less tornado risk we're going to see. Now, while that sounds like good news, and it is, our damaging wind threat doesn't necessarily go down. And that's what we're looking at. This system is really morphing over into a damaging straight line wind event. You've got two large severe thunderstorm warnings, Delaware, Adair, Sequoia, LaFleur counties under these severe thunderstorm warnings. And the reason those have been issued, damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour. We'll dive into that. First, I want to show you the watches. There have been some additions and some changes over the last hour or so. You were probably watching 5 News this morning here on 5 Plus with meteorologist Stephen Elmore. Here's the updates that he passed along to you. Pink is going to be our severe thunderstorm watch. All of northwest Arkansas, all of the Arkansas side of the river valley. Now we get into parts of Scott County, Adair, Sequoia, LaFleur, yellow. This is going to be our tornado watch. It's there where conditions are still somewhat favorable to support the potential of a little bit of rotation, albeit that potential is certainly decreasing with time. Good news for us, right? Both of these watches set to expire at 11 o'clock. What's actually going to happen is you're going to start to see these watches falling off from the west to the east as the threat continues to diminish. That will be happening in real time. We'll pass those updates along to you. Now let's go back to live radar. Let me tell you when these warnings are set to expire. They're pretty large warnings, the first of which that includes Delaware and Adair County. That's going to be running until 8 o'clock this morning, 70 mile per hour straight line winds possibly coming out of that storm right now. In addition to just the heavy rain, that's also going to be a concern for us as this moves into northwest Arkansas right during rush hour. You can expect some slow drive times out there, no question about that. Let's take a look at that southernmost severe thunderstorm warning. This one includes parts of Sequoia, a good chunk of western LaFleur County. It too set to expire at 8 o'clock. These warnings are probably going to be rolling into Arkansas with time, unless this line considerably weakens between the next 30 minutes or so. Probably not going to happen quick enough to avoid warnings entirely, but it is certainly a trend that we hope to see develop. That's the actual live radar. What we'll do here, since we've got a little bit of time on Plus, is take a look at velocity. While the tornado threat is certainly decreasing, that doesn't necessarily mean it's zero. One of the things we're going to be looking at are these little notches like this right here. Now, this is going to be to the west of Adair County. A little bit of rotation certainly possible. This actually was a cell that was tornado warned about 5 to 10 minutes ago. This rotation, it's kind of broadening out as we were losing that storm fuel. We're losing that instability. So they did drop that warning. Probably got some damaging straight line winds coming out of the leading Boeing segment of this line, but we'll want to watch to make sure that doesn't try to tighten back up. While the potential is decreasing, again, it's not zero yet, which is unfortunately going to keep us on our guard. There's also a little bit of a kink down here. This is going to be just to the west of Podo. It's not in LaFleur County yet, probably 30 to 40 minutes away from being so, but you want to watch these little eddies, and those little eddies where those kinks develop that you can get a quick spin up tornado. Now, this isn't like those isolated supercells that you see out west in parts of Tornado Alley, traditional Tornado Alley, that are all alone and you can see it. These happen really quickly. They're kind of tough to issue warnings for because they develop and they spin up so quickly. If there's any good news with those, they're generally, not always, but generally a little bit weaker, and they're often short-lived. They're short-fused tornadoes. They spin up real quick. We issue the warning, we go on television, we tell people to get to shelter, and generally within 5-10 minutes, those things have weakened. Now, wasn't necessarily the case earlier this morning when this line was 50 to 100 miles back off towards the west. Those were somewhat more long-lived tornado warnings, so it just speaks to the magnitude of this storm environment that these are moving through right now. You'll notice, though, as this becomes a bit more linear, you're seeing that main line of storms extending from northeast Oklahoma into southeast Oklahoma. I would really focus in Sequoia, LaFleur, parts of maybe southern Sebastian and Scott counties. That's where there's a little bit of instability left in the atmosphere. There's not much. I'll tell you though, there's so much wind energy with this storm. When you look at the weather balloon data, we put weather balloons up in the air, right, twice a day. And if you look at the profile, that gives us from the ground all the way up to the tops of the clouds. The winds are turning with height, meaning they're out of the southeast at the surface, but even just above our heads, they're shifting back towards the southwest, and eventually way up at airplane level, they're out of the west-northwest. And that top motion, if you think about it like spinning a top, you know, like the toys the kids play with, that's happening right here. And that kind of environment, that wind profile, very, very favorable of supporting some rotation. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, really, I should say, to be clear, fortunately for us, that's not the only ingredient. You also need that storm fuel. It's called CAPE, Convective Available Potential Energy, 50-cent word. That'll be the last time I say it today. That's really low, and that's good news. If those temperatures and the humidity would have gotten a little bit higher this morning, we would be looking at a very different situation. Thankfully, we're dodging what could have been a much larger bullet. With that said, damaging straight line winds is going to be a big concern for us over the next few hours, and that in of itself can cause really just as much damage as a weaker tornado. Just ask the folks in Benton County from back in May, right? Straight line wind can cause a lot of damage. In fact, sometimes it can be a bit more widespread than even what an isolated tornado might be doing. Here's our warning. Right now, it does include Delaware, Adair, western part of Sequoia County, western part of LaFleur County. I would expect more of these warnings to be issued at least one row into Arkansas. So I would expect some warning probably for wind for parts of Benton, Washington, Crawford, Sebastian, even maybe Scott County within the next hour or so as this storm track continues to push off towards the east-northeast. Generally, these are moving at about 30 miles per hour. So what we'll do, got about 2 minutes before we got to go back and do another one of those CBS cut-ins. When that happens, we'll be right back. No big concern for you. We'll leave you with live radar. I'll put a track on this. And this is going to give you some general estimated times of arrival. It's not perfect, but it gives a pretty good idea based off current wind speed. That puts the leading edge of the storm around 7:26. That's in about a minute in Poto. So I guess that would make sense from where I drew it. Let me actually back that up. I'm going to show you where the strongest of winds will be. I'm going to draw that a little bit closer to the leading edge of that line. Here we go. Park Hill, that's going to put you around 726. Sallisaw, 742. Worcester, I have a lot of friends there in Worcester. Good morning to everybody. 752. Poto around 803. Siloam Springs at 818. Fort Smith right around 825. We're about 30 seconds away from that CBS cut-in. Things are going to get a little tricky here on 5+. Don't worry about it. We will be with you right here. We're not going to go anywhere. Stream's going to stay on. We're about 15 seconds away from that. So we'll pause for the moment. We'll rejoin everybody here in just a few. Well, good morning. Current time 7:25. You're watching 5 News, and we're live on 5+, tracking a line of severe thunderstorms approaching East Oklahoma, soon to move into West Arkansas. Meteorologist Stephen Elmore, Joshua Weisel, and myself tracking these storms on all fronts. Right now, the primary concern, damaging winds. We had numerous tornado warnings associated with this line. Those have since been dropped. The threat really appears to be transitioning over into primarily a damaging wind threat. That was expected to be the case. With that said, while the tornado potential is low and it is slowly decreasing, it's not zero. So we're watching this line very closely this morning just to make sure nothing tries to spin up. With that said, 70-mile-per-hour winds have been common with this line as it's approaching from the west. It's moving generally towards the east-northeast, right around 30 miles per hour. In addition to that, what you're also going to notice is there's a lot of reds there on your screen. That's going to tell us you've got some very heavy rainfall. So we would expect some flash flooding to be a real concern for us over the next couple of hours. Unfortunately, the timing of this rain is going to correspond with when a lot of folks are going to be on those interstates, those highways, heading to work, heading to school. You might want to leave a little bit early. That is going to slow you down out there. No question about that. Let me show you the watches. Both watches, we've got a severe thunderstorm watch and we have a tornado watch. Both are going to be in effect until 11 o'clock this morning. Yellow is where our conditions are favorable for tornadoes. That's where that watch is in effect. Pink here, which includes all of northwest Arkansas, a good chunk of the River Valley. That's where the severe thunderstorm potential is going to exist until about 11 o'clock. Now, we've got the Stormchaser in the field tracking the storm from outside. We've got Stephen Elmore inside here in the studio, myself. We're live on 5+. If you want to join us there, we'll track this storm for you all morning long. All right, back to the 5 plus. We're juggling a lot of things here. Folks up at the booth, at any point we want to bring in a meteorologist, Stephen Elmore. Let's make sure we're coded for that camera shot. I'll keep things rolling over here in the meantime. Things are slowing down. Storm's not moving near as quick, which is good, right? These things are starting to weaken. As you would expect, there's not as much lightning as there was earlier. I'm seeing a few strikes here in parts of northeast Oklahoma. We got some just to the west of Poto. In fact, taking a look at some of our cameras over there. We have a brand new camera there in LaFleur County at the Eastern Oklahoma Medical Center. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my cell phone. I'm not texting, I promise. I'm going to pull that up and I'm going to spin it around off towards the west and see if we can't see anything over that direction. So this is going to be what I'll do. Let's pull this up. This is going to be one of our closest cameras to this part of the area. This is looking off towards the west. And what you can see, yeah, there's some dark clouds there. Looks like the winds are pretty breezy out there. That's going to be a big concern for us today. Not only are we talking about severe thunderstorm winds, 70 mile per hour possible, you're also going to be looking at non-thunderstorm winds up to 50 miles per hour. Those are going to kick into gear really this afternoon, continuing into this evening, and likely through tomorrow. It's a very, very potent storm system. We're dealing with severe weather now. By late tonight, northwest Arkansas probably going to be dealing with a little bit of snow. It's called some wraparound snow on the backside of our low pressure. It's a very strong area of low pressure, bringing the severe storms, bringing the winds, bringing the snow. So it's packing a lot of punches. This morning, though, we'll focus right now on the convective nature of this, which is just a fancy way of saying the thunderstorms. You've got some pretty efficient rain coming out of this. So my fear with this is, okay, right now it's 7:29. This is going to be moving into northwest Arkansas, the River Valley, probably within the next hour, and you're going to get a lot of heavy rain right around the time folks are trying to get to work. So we're probably going to see some slow commute times. If you're getting ready to head out the door this morning, you might want to budget a few extra minutes. Kids are probably out there at the bus stop. Good news is they're going to avoid most of the rain. With that said, you've got some showers in western Benton, western Washington, Delaware, Adair, Sequoia, and LaFleur counties. If you're further off towards the east, maybe those kids are probably going to stay dry. These rain showers probably continue through the latter part of the morning. I think by noon, a lot of it's wrapping up for many of us, maybe some lingering showers. We'll have to watch this afternoon for some additional shower to thunderstorm activity. Not expected to be severe, but certainly a little bit of rain nonetheless. Taking a live look here at live radar. This is looping over the last couple of hours, and you can see that general track towards the east-northeast. What we'll do here is we'll actually take a look at some wind velocities and just make sure we don't have any rotation trying to pop up. We'll work our way from north to south. What you're really going to be wanting to look at in these thunderstorms is where do you find these little kinks, these little eddies, and I'll tell you, here's one of them right here. It's right now not strong enough to support a tornado. That could change really quickly. That's the problem with these types of setups, these types of environments. It's like playing whack-a-mole. You just never can stay on top of it quick enough. They spin up really quick, and they often are short-fused, meaning they don't last very long, and they fizzle out pretty quickly. That's the good news with it, but they can cause some brief damage out there. That latest scan actually kind of shows that trying to tighten back up just a little bit. So we'll keep an eye on that. That would bring that into Adair County at some point here over the next few minutes. You work your way down to parts of Sequoia County. Things are looking crisp there. There's probably some damaging straight line winds coming out of that on the west side of Sequoia County. And you've got some brighter returns as we get further away from the radar. We're looking a little bit higher into the atmosphere in LaFleur County. Worcester, Heavener, you're probably going to be seeing some winds. You're looking live there towards Kavanaugh Hill in Poto. If you look at these trees, looks like they were dancing a little bit earlier, so those winds are probably going to be picking up. That looks a little bit psychedelic, but that's our rotation tracker. We'll keep focusing in on that just to make sure nothing tries to spin up. Our tornado threat is certainly decreasing. We had numerous tornado warnings even just an hour ago up and down this line. So it has been capable of producing tornadoes. Haven't seen any reports of actual tornadoes yet, but we have seen numerous reports of measured wind speeds 60 to 70 miles per hour. So we're not talking Doppler radar estimated wind speeds. We're talking actually someone with an anemometer, a wind speed measuring device, standing out there and taking some real samples for us, which is some good news. Folks up on the booth, if you want to tell me tell me where Joshua Weisel is. We can check in with him at any point you guys get ready for that. Things are pretty quiet across northwest Arkansas. That's not to say things aren't going to get interesting here real quick. Our severe thunderstorm warning now pretty much extends all the way to the Oklahoma-Arkansas state line. Unless this storm weakens somewhat considerably over the next few minutes, and this one's set to expire at 8 o'clock, I would expect an extension in those warnings into West Arkansas, probably within the next half hour or so. Those warnings right now are set to expire at 8 o'clock. The reason they were issued: 70-mile-per-hour straight-line wind speeds likely moving out of those cells. So taking a look at live radar, that's an update there. Stephen Elmore, if we can bring Stephen in, and we'll take a look at watches, and maybe Stephen can walk us through Futurecast when you guys can pull him up.
Yeah, we've been tracking this line of thunderstorms since early this morning, like Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert has mentioned a few times. Again, earlier this morning, this line of thunderstorms was really starting to become very active. We had numerous warnings stretching from Tulsa to McAllister. We had multiple tornado warnings as well. The good news is as this line has continued to progress, we've been seeing less in the way of signs of rotation, more turning into the way of the chances for some strong straight line winds. So here's a look at radar there. You see those two warnings that we have. Those are set to expire here in just about 27 minutes. But again, those are anywhere along that line that we drew just a little bit ago. You could find up to around 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Now again, the kinks in the line is where we'll be focused on, seeing if there's any more signs of that rotation. But overall, right now, not seeing any signs of that. That's good news for us. Now, if we can just start to decrease the wind threat as we progress throughout the morning hours, that would be even better. Unfortunately, I don't know if we can get that lucky for this morning. More than likely, that morning commute and that late morning commute, a lot of those times where those kiddos are heading off to school as well, more than likely could be very wet, very rainy, and very windy as well. All right, let's check out Futurecast here and show you what we got the rest of the day today. And we're sitting at 7:30, so that's where we'll start right now. This model doing a pretty good job right now, maybe filling in a little bit of the lines of where those scattered showers would be, those lighter green colors, not popping up as much right now, and that's typical for these type of systems. Really just focus on that line of thunderstorms, and this is kind of giving you an idea of what may occur the rest of this morning. This is a better look of about where we are, getting closer towards that 8 a.m. hour. Along that leading edge, as it crosses over from eastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas, that's where we would find those strongest winds. Now, again, the hope is that those winds continue to decrease, but more than likely, the closer you live towards the state line, or even to our friends for eastern Oklahoma as well, that's where those strongest winds are going to be. Starting to see those severe thunderstorm warnings right now just outside of those county lines. So again, more than likely, that's where those strongest winds are going to be right now. As we progress throughout the morning hours, this is going to turn into a wind threat. This is going to turn into a heavy rainfall threat as well. Here's a look at 9 a.m. this morning. Unfortunately, I fear that we're going to have a lot of drivers out across I-49 and I-40 as well. 540, anywhere you are this morning, more than likely going to be some very heavy downpours throughout that commute hour. Now, the good news is once we get to the mid-morning hours, this system starts to spread out, and this becomes more of a rain threat. Now, we're going to still hang on to the chances of some strong winds in there, especially wherever that leading edge would be. But this is going to turn into, unfortunately, maybe a flooding concern as well. The rainfall rate or the rainfall totals may increase throughout the day today, anywhere between just around an inch or above of that rainfall by the time we're all said and done with this. The good news is by the time we get to the late morning hours into the early afternoon, the leading edge of that system is passed. Now we're just dealing with a few of those scattered showers. This is a look just after noon this morning. And then into the afternoon, we enter into a lull. Again, this system was very unique in the way that it was very hyper-focused on the morning hours. And by the time we got to the afternoon, looking pretty good so far until we get into the late afternoon, early evening. That's where you can see maybe a few pop-up showers here and there. And if there is any energy left over, you could see an isolated thunderstorm. Definitely the highest chance for those thunderstorms going to be right now through the mid-morning hours, but can't rule out maybe an isolated thunderstorm later on this afternoon into the early evening hours. Now, here is a surprise that Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert was talking about a little bit earlier. You don't usually connect the two between thunderstorms and snowflakes, but every once in a while we get the scenario where as we get this wraparound moisture, cooler air is going to follow with it as well. And by the time we get past midnight tonight into early for our Wednesday morning, that wraparound moisture is going to come in the way of some snowflakes potentially, or at least some wintry mix. Now, that's because temperatures in northwest Northwest Arkansas would drop to or close to 33, 32 degrees. Of course, that would determine whether or not we get some of that wintry mix or more in the way of those snowflakes. That's still to come, but at least a high chance of seeing at least some snowflakes flying out there early Wednesday morning before it's going to be much cooler but much calmer. When it comes to the rest of the morning for tomorrow. Now, what Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert has also mentioned is the wind threat. And before I send it back over to him with live radar, let's talk about that really quickly. Again, we had those strong winds this morning. We're going to have those winds associated with the thunderstorms. But what's called non-thunderstorm winds are going to be an issue, not only late tonight, once again, as that cold air is rushing in, but going into tomorrow morning as well. We could see non-thunderstorm related winds, gusts anywhere from 40 up to 50 miles per hour. That can cause some isolated power outages. That can cause a lot of things to blow around outside as well. Hopefully we avoid any damage, but don't want to say, okay, now that the thunderstorms are done, we lose any risk of that wind threat. That comes back by the time we get late this evening into tomorrow morning. We'll take another look at radar here, and I'll send it back over to Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert. He's got the latest update for us. Again, 2 severe thunderstorm warnings right now for at least our viewing area, but now, looking down the line, more than likely, unless we see some this activity decreasing significantly, the next warning would be crossing over the state line.
Those 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, quite large ones, extending from Delaware County all the way down into southeastern Oklahoma. That's a live look at radar. Those are the current warnings we've got right now. We're not going anywhere. We do need to take a brief pause to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be doing some cut-ins over live on CBS as well. Don't go anywhere. You're here on 5 Plus. We're going to be tracking this storm for you, not just from the studio. We've got our Stormchaser in the field as well. We'll be checking in with Joshua Weisel there in the field here coming up in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, good morning, everybody on 5 Plus. We're popping in, we're popping out. We're kind of playing whack-a-mole this morning. We've got some live cut-ins over on CBS. We'll be tracking the storms for you right here on 5 Plus as well. Here's a live radar. Things are slowly but surely starting to calm down. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean the threat is entirely over. It's not. I think we've got a couple more hours to go with this line of storms. We had numerous tornado warnings up and down the line this morning. Those have since been allowed to expire as the threat has really been transitioning over to primarily damaging winds. And we're talking wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour have been noted along the leading edge of this storm. You'll notice here you've got two large severe thunderstorm warnings that's pretty much running all the way from Delaware County down to Pushmataha County in southeast Oklahoma. Those are the warnings we have into effect right now. We're watching closely this leading edge of the line to see if anything tries to spin up. That's where we would expect to see a brief tornado should one try to develop with this storm. I really think we're going to see more than anything else a damaging wind threat with this specific system. Right now, no warnings in effect for Arkansas, but I'll tell you, these two warnings set to expire at 8 o'clock. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's not an extension over into the Arkansas side of the state line. Just given these storms, while weakening, they're not doing so quickly enough. So expect some more warnings to pass along to you over the next few minutes. We are tracking this storm not only here in studio. Joshua Weisel out in the field this morning in the 5 News Stormchaser tracking conditions there. Joshua, where are you and what current conditions can you report back to us?
All right, we are on Highway 62. We just made it through Lincoln. We're approaching Summers, and as you can see, not a whole lot of activity yet. We have had some gusty winds out ahead of this activity. Nothing severe by any means or anything like that. But there is a little bit of rainfall, so there is some rain on the roadways, so just take it slow just because this is that early rainfall. There could be some slick spots for hydroplaning just because there's enough water on the roadways for that. Otherwise, nothing severe here yet, but those storms are approaching. We're going to be keeping a close eye on this. We're headed west right now. We might head south here in just a little bit just to kind of keep up. We're trying to see where the best parts of this line are in terms of that damaging wind threat that's moving into the area. So we've been a very close eye on this. Nothing major yet, but we are going to be watching this very carefully out here. We'll send it back to you.
Good report from Joshua Weisel there in the 5 News Stormchaser. Here's where he's at. He's pretty much on the west side of Washington County, traveling towards the west. He will be entering into that zone here real soon where we would expect to see those 70-mile-per-hour winds. The other thing that I was noticing just while he was speaking is I take a look at velocity. Now, this is the tool that's going to measure wind speed and wind direction. It's how we detect rotation. And things are going to look a little bit interesting here. With these types of setups, it's called a squall line. That's what we refer to it as often. You want to look for these little kinks or where they have these little eddies. That's where you can start to see some of the spin. It happens really quickly. While there is a little bit of a kink right here getting ready to move into Adair County, which Joshua's going to be in a pretty good position to intercept, it's not very tight and the winds aren't really all that impressive at all. So right now, not too concerning in terms of tornado potential, but we want to watch it closely. These things can and often do change pretty quickly. There's also something somewhat similar in southern LaFleur County. In fact, we'll take a tighter look into some of these little issues down here. This is going to be what I'm looking at pretty much just, let's say, to the southwest of Heavener. It's not very impressive. It's not very organized, but these things can go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly, and that's why we want to focus on these really closely just to make sure we're staying on top of it. Right now, though, nothing rotating to the extent that would necessitate a warning or seeking shelter or anything like that. We have a severe thunderstorm warning. This is going to be in effect until 8 o'clock. Some towns included in this specific warning: Panama, Stigler, Tallahena, and Worcester. Right now, the warning is in effect for 60-mile-per-hour winds. You could see some hail up to about just shy of 1 inch in diameter, which is the size of a quarter. Primarily, the threat here is going to be winds. Even a little bit of flash flooding can't be ruled out. We'll take a look at this other severe thunderstorm warning, and this is going to also, okay, it looks like they're updating it. What they're doing here is they're trimming out Muskogee, Chakotah, Okmulgee, Henrietta. That was included in the warning. However, However, now the threat has passed, and so they're just trimming the box, telling folks back off towards the west in Muskogee that, hey, the threat's passed. You're dealing with some rain, but the actual severe weather now pushing off towards your east. This will soon move into Adair, and it is moving through Sequoia County right now, 60-mile-per-hour winds. That's interesting to note because for the longest time, this severe storm was capable of producing 70-mile-per-hour winds. So at least we're starting to see this thing slowly but surely decrease. This is going to be a look at the leading edge from evening shade down to, let's say, Keota. That's where that leading edge is probably producing that 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. Watch evening shade right here, a little bit of a kink in that line. Again, nothing to note right now, but if there were something to try to spin up, those are going to be some of the early signs. It's not too concerning right now, but I do want to keep note of that. Sallisaw, if you're in Sallisaw, winds are about to pick up really quickly, as are they in Brushy, Greasy. This all pushing closer and closer to the Arkansas state line. What I'd like to do here is let's get an idea of how fast this storm is moving. I suspect it may be slowing down just a bit. The actual warning track on that is going to be for 30 miles an hour. So let's back things up. We'll take a look at rain mode. We'll zoom out pretty wide, and we'll put a 5 News storm track on this to give you an idea of when those winds are going to be picking up. It's a pretty long line, generally moving off towards the east-northeast at 30 miles per hour. That puts the leading edge of the rain and the winds here about 6 minutes in Poto. Let's keep an eye on that Eastern Oklahoma Medical Center camera. Siloam a little after 8 o'clock. Pecola closer to 8:13. Fort Smith, downtown Fort Smith around 8:21. Alma 8:41. Rogers closer to 8:51. Fayetteville around 8:55. Elkins, those winds probably picking up around 9 o'clock, a little bit after. Boonville and Ozark, two rivalries when I was growing up. Bearcats always beat us, almost always, dadgummit. 9:16 in Boonville, 9:26 in Ozark Parish around 9:37. And that's probably pushing into Johnson County closer to the 10 o'clock hour, give or take a little bit. That's assuming this storm doesn't speed up or slow down. If anything, I think it may slow down. Just as the storm, it's moving into an environment that while there's a lot of wind energy, there's really not a lot of storm fuel. There wasn't much to begin with, which is really helping mitigate what could have been a much more explosive tornado threat. When you look at the wind profile above us, not only in the speeds, but how the winds are turning with height, think of it as trying to spin a top. You know those tops the kids use? They'll take their fingers and they'll spin in opposing directions. That's really very reflective of the winds from the surface up to the cloud level, which traditionally would support a lot of tornadic activity. But because the storm fuel is so low, that's likely not materializing. Now, that wasn't the case back off towards the west when this line first got going, but as it's moved closer and closer to us, storm fuel has been dropping off. Wind shear remains high. Storm fuel, though, not too impressive. The other thing to note on this specific warning, Delaware County was included, parts of it earlier. As they trimmed that, they've trimmed Delaware County out of it. I'll tell you, there's no distinct line here in Delaware or even Benton County, which tells me there's probably not damaging wind happening out ahead of that. Where it's a bit more defined, you can see it right here, and it looks like they're updating it there for parts of LaFleur, even parts of Sequoia County. Where this line is nice and crisp and defined, that's where the 60 to 70 mile per hour winds likely coming out of the leading edge of that storm. So we're getting closer to the Fort Smith area. We're probably going to see winds in Fayetteville as well. Here's the thing, while they might not be 60 to 70 miles per hour, they might be 40 to 50. And that's going to be a problem for us as well. It makes driving difficult, especially blowing that rain around the area. If you've got trash day, not only are the winds going to be kind of high with this round of thunderstorms, but then even going into this evening, we'll have those non-thunderstorm winds. We'll take a closer look into that here in just a few moments. 2 warnings, though. Those are set to expire in about 8 minutes at 8 o'clock. We'll see what the Weather Service determines is needed. Do they need to extend that warning a little bit further, or are they going to be able to allow that warning to expire? There really isn't much storm fuel at all for these to work with. And because of that, you're seeing the weakening trend, which is great news. Unfortunately, it's not like flipping a switch where there's no storm fuel and things just dissipate entirely. It takes a little bit of time for these things to fizzle out, especially given how much wind energy is available to them. So we would expect those high winds probably in the Fort Smith area here in the next 30 to 45 minutes. That's going to be the concern for us for the next, let's say, couple of hours. That's a live look from ACHE, our camera in South Fort Smith. Very cloudy skies. You got a lot of moisture. You can kind of see that. A little bit of fog there in the hills and the valleys there. that moisture is certainly going to be a key ingredient to support some of these storms out there. Thankfully, it wasn't higher, right? That would be a real problem for us going into this severe weather threat. Those two warnings right now are going to continue until about 8 o'clock this morning, waiting to determine what the Weather Service is going to do. I think they'll probably have to extend at least one of them a little bit further towards the east, just given a look at how crisp that line is. There is some lightning, there is some thunder with this system, in addition to just some heavy rain. What we'll do here, we'll take a look at some winds for a couple of reasons. One, I'm looking for any kinks, and there looks to be one just south of I-40 here in Sequoia County. Again, nothing too concerning right now in terms of rotation potential, but it is some of these little kinks that you can see occasionally where there might try to be something spin up. That's why that tornado watch is in effect. Okay, if you, maybe you need a refresher, that is the first severe weather event of the season, or maybe you're new to the area and you just don't understand watches, warnings. Warning is going to mean something is imminent. It's happening and you need to take action. You need to seek shelter, right? A watch just means, hey, conditions are favorable. Conditions could support something happening quickly. And we do have a tornado watch in effect for a good chunk of East Oklahoma as well as Scott County. Here's the latest. And you notice I mentioned this earlier at the beginning of the stream. They would start to trim some of these counties out of the watch as the threat passes. That's what's happened. With that said, we do still have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for all of Northwest Arkansas, a good chunk of the River Valley on the Arkansas side. You get into Oklahoma, that's where there's just a little bit of ingredients still available for some rotation. That's why that watch remains in effect there. Both of these set to expire at 11 o'clock. But as you're seeing here in parts of Oklahoma, as the threat passes, they're actually able to trim those and drop some of the counties off. All right, you're watching us live here on 5 Plus. We're going to be tracking the storm not only in the studio, but as you see in the field as well as these storms roll into the area. Got to do a little bit of housekeeping. We're also live over on Channel 5. In about 15 seconds, we've got to do one of those cut-ins live. As soon as that one's over with, which is going to take about 2 minutes, we'll be back right here. All right, good morning to everybody over on 5 News, as well as those watching us live this morning on 5 Plus. We're going to be tracking these storms all morning long, especially there on 5 Plus. Hope you can join us right now. We have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, both of which are set to expire here in about 4 minutes at 8 o'clock. It does include Adair, Sequoia, and LaFleur counties. Winds up to 60 miles per hour are possible out of this storm. Now, there is a tornado watch in effect until about 11 o'clock for East Oklahoma as well as Scott County. So some conditions, while not optimal for tornadoes, could support 1 or 2 brief spin-ups. We're tracking everything for you very closely. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for Northwest Arkansas. Both watches set to expire at 11 o'clock this morning. Pink here is going to be your severe thunderstorm watch. Yellow is going to be that tornado watch. As these storms are progressing further and further towards the east, they are slowly but surely weakening. There's not a lot of storm fuel available to these storms. However, there's a lot of wind shear, and that's why our primary concern moving forward is probably going to be that potential for some additional damaging straight line winds up to 60 miles per hour. Now, in addition to all of that, look at all that red and that orange on live Doppler radar. Those some really heavy rain, and it's not moving super quick. So as these storms slow down and as they're dumping a lot of rain, we would expect to see some ponding on some roadways. A little bit of flash flooding can't be ruled out as well. This is a loop over the last hour or so, and you can see there's not a lot of eastward movement. These are generally tracking towards the east-northeast at about 30 miles per hour. Brand new severe thunderstorm warning includes a good chunk of Sequoia, all of LaFleur County now. This will probably be extended over into the Arkansas side. When it happens, we'll be the first to let you know right here on 5 News and over on 5 Plus. All right, back to 5 Plus, where we're doing a little bit of a dance here. Meteorologist Stephen Elmore getting you ready all morning long. He's still in the studio tracking these storms with us. We've got Joshua in the field, and we'll be here until the threats pass. That's what 5 Plus is for. It's my favorite part about 5 Plus. We can lift up the hood on these storms and really get an idea of what's happening, spend a little bit more time with you that we can't do over on television. Now, if a tornado warning is issued, we'll have to do both, and we'll do both just fine, but that's kind of what we're looking at for today. I'll tell you, though, the window for tornado genesis is closing with each and every minute. That's some good news. Unfortunately, our damaging wind threat is becoming more and more pressing as time passes on. These storms are shifting off towards the east. It's not as clearly defined as it once was. In fact, what I'd like to do, since we do have a little bit more time to spend with each other here on 5 Plus. What I'll do is I'll back this up. This is going to be 6:17 this morning, so this is almost 2 hours ago, and you can see that line was really well defined. That's when we had some tornadoes embedded within the main line. That line was also producing about 70-mile-per-hour winds. You fast forward to current, and what you find is it's a lot less organized, a little bit more messy out there. Even despite that less organization, it's still packing a punch. These winds are certainly going to be breezy. We'll take another look into the wind velocities. That's certainly been something we've been paying very close attention to for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want to track how high those wind speeds are. But two, if we were to see an area of rotation, it would likely be in a kink a lot like this. This is going to be looking at Sequoia County. We've kind of pointed this one out to you over the last few minutes. This is going to be just to the west of Sallisaw, pretty much a couple of miles south of Interstate 40. What we'll do, we'll take a little bit closer look into that. Right now, there's no tornado warning, and I wouldn't even say at the moment there's not a pressing tornado threat, but right between Sallisaw and Brent along Highway 59, Oklahoma 59, you see that little kink right there. That's often where you can see these spin-up tornadoes develop if they are to develop. These happen really quickly often. The good news is they often fizzle out really quickly as well. And generally, not always, but generally these little weak spin-up tornadoes, they are often weaker in nature. That doesn't necessarily mean you have better odds to ride it out without taking your tornado safety precautions, but just to say we're not looking at a significant tornado outbreak at this point. 1 or 2 warnings are going to be possible over the next couple of hours. With each passing minute, I'm feeling a little bit better about things. But when I see a signal like that, I tend to think that we've got something that we need to watch for. We can't let our guard down just immediately. I'm going to pause for one moment. Somebody up in the booth needs to send a message to me. Okay. Okay. Okay, we've got another CBS cut-in. So if you're watching here on 5 Plus, hey, we're going to be right back. Things get a little bit interesting as we're switching gears back and forth. Just kind of the nature of the beast, but we will be tracking these storms both here on CBS as well as on 5 Plus. Right now, we do have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. The one, I'll tell you, just near Sallisaw, has me a little bit concerned, that signature there. We'll pause for the moment. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning extending from Adair, Sequoia, LaFleur counties. That's soon probably going to be extended into the Arkansas side of the line unless it continues to weaken somewhat considerably. A little bit of a kink in the line there could support some rotation. We'll have to track that very closely. We're about 2 minutes away from our next CBS cut-in. It's a short one. It's a 30-second one. And so we'll be right back here on 5 Plus when that happens. I'll leave you with live radar for the time being. We'll be right back.
Care plus amino serum. Refills.
Are we back live on 5 Plus right now? We are live on 5 Plus. Good morning to everybody. If you're just now joining us, good to see you right here on 5 Plus. This platform gives us the ability to spend a little bit more intimate time with each other, tracking these storms, diving into the science behind what's happening, as well as giving you the impacts of what you need to be prepared for. Right now, we have a weakening line of thunderstorms moving into the area. That's the good news. It's weakening, but don't misunderstand me. It's still packing a punch. We're looking at 60-mile-per-hour winds in East Oklahoma. That's approaching the Arkansas-Oklahoma state line. Right now, our warning, and I know this picture is somewhat messy, and I'll see if I can't simplify this a little bit for you. There's a lot going on. This may be a little bit more easier to digest. Pink here is going to be your severe thunderstorm watch. That's primarily going to be our concern for the next little bit. Although in East Oklahoma, and as well as Scott and Polk counties in southwest Arkansas, that's a tornado watch. That's going to be here in yellow. Now, what is this orange guy here? That's our current severe thunderstorm warning. And of course, a warning means conditions are imminent for some severe weather. That's the 60-mile-per-hour straight line winds that we're tracking out of that system. The other thing that we've been watching over the last several scans is a little bit of a notching feature in Sequoyah County, not too far from Sallisaw. Here's Sallisaw here. It doesn't look overall that impressive. I wouldn't say there's an imminent tornado threat with this cell. But if there were something to try to spin up, one of the early signs of detection would be this little bit of a spin up. Now, you might be wondering, okay, if that's an early sign, why in the world aren't the sirens sounding? Why is there no warning? Why aren't you concerned? Well, this happens all the time. And it only occasionally actually translates into something to be concerned with. Does that mean we're going to let our guard down? No, not necessarily. You've also got to watch this just to the southwest of Spiro, a little bit of kink in that line as well. These are quasi-convective linear systems, QLCS, or as we hillbillies around here like to say, squall line. Squall line is moving through the area. More often than not, about 60% of our tornadoes in this part of the world come from systems like this. These lines of convective storms that you'll occasionally get a weak spin up. These are tough to warn on because they happen really quickly and they often fizzle out almost as soon as you can get the warning typed up and issued and weather radio sounding, siren sounding. They often dissipate pretty quickly. Not always. In fact, this morning alone is a good example that there were some more of them back off towards the west in this same line that was a little bit more of a long track. If you look closely here, just to the west of Adair and certainly moving through parts of central Sequoyah and now LaFleur County, this line of storms is going to be your primary concern. It's somewhat of a thin line. It's getting real messy out here in West Arkansas. That's good news, though. That's actually working to mitigate what could be a stronger severe weather potential. Not to say it's going to mitigate it entirely, but if this was clear out here and that leading edge was a bit more crisp and it didn't have all this clutter of this yellow and this orange, we might be looking at a little bit different of a system. Right now, though, it's just the winds, maybe a little bit of hail mixing in. In fact, what we can do is we can tell the radar, hey, show me if there's any hail. And right now, you're really not seeing much at all out of that system. Not to say there might not be some small hail going undetected, but this is really going to be primarily a wind threat for a lot of us. And I keep going back to live radar. I don't want to say concerned, but I want to pay really close attention to what's happening here in Sequoyah County with that little notch right there. We want to make sure there's nothing trying to develop. We do have a brand new camera in Podo at the Eastern Oklahoma Medical Center. I'm looking at that from time to time. Can't see a whole lot out of it. Cloud deck's somewhat low. That's Kavanaugh Hill right there. Oh, you can't see it, I'm behind it, but maybe if we could point that thing towards the north. We'll also want to point some Fort Smith cameras towards the west. I can do that real quickly. In fact, while I'm adjusting some camera angles, let's bring in meteorologist Stephen Elmore to walk us through the latest.
Yeah, latest information for us this morning. Again, if you're with us for 5 News this morning, we had a very strong line of thunderstorms that was well off towards the west, between McAllister and the Tulsa metro. As you've progressed since then, though, this line has continued to weaken. So if we take a look at where we stand right now at radar, to the point where, yes, we do still have that severe thunderstorm warning that stretches from eastern Oklahoma right up to the state line. But you work from Benton County, south to Washington County, eventually into the River Valley. What you see is this system really starting to spread out. Yes, there is that very defined line that's cutting through parts of Adair County, parts of Sequoyah County. That's what Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's checking on right now, is if on that direct line there's a little bit of a kink that may lead to some rotation. but this is very much transitioning over into a rainfall, a heavy rainfall event, but also a wind threat as well when it comes to where that line is. That's still in parts of eastern Oklahoma. So if you're getting ready, 8 o'clock here, just after 8 a.m., folks in northwest Arkansas getting ready to head out the door. What's the latest update for you this morning? Well, I'll tell you what, it's not too bad. What you got is some heavy showers coming down right now, mainly across parts of northwest Arkansas, parts of the River Valley, but eastern Oklahoma is where that wind threat is right now. Bentonville, Rogers, starting to see some of those heavier showers right now. As we progress over in the next hour or so, more of that heavy rainfall will move into the area as this line of thunderstorms continues to move east, but also, like we just mentioned, spread out as well, become less of that severe chance and more of just that heavy rainfall chance as well. You work south to Springdale, Fayetteville, down to Winslow, a little bit lighter in the way of that rainfall for now. You see those darker colors further off towards the west, pops of those yellows, pops of that red, and then just there in the Adair County is where that line of thunderstorms is as well. Across the River Valley, a little bit different of a story. From Clarksville to Paris to Boonville, pretty quiet so far this morning as expected. That arrival time was going to be a little bit later in the morning, sometime between, let's say 9:30, maybe even closer towards 10, as this system is really slowing down. That is important to note here, is that when most of you were asleep, we were here tracking this storm early this morning. And we're talking about like 5 or 4, before 4 a.m. this morning. And this line of thunderstorms was moving at about 60 miles per hour off towards the northeast. Since then, it has slowed down significantly, about 30 miles per hour slower now, only tracking east-northeast about 25 to 30 miles per hour. So now a slow-moving system that's going to result in more in the way of some flooding concerns. The one area that we're looking at, though, of some concern would be from Poteau to Salisaw, Heavener as well. That's where that line of thunderstorms is. That's what Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's been checking out, and he's got that latest update for you.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is I'm going to pull up that East Oklahoma Medical Center camera in Poteau. We can actually see the shelf cloud, which is going to be certainly something a lot of folks are probably noticing out there. If we could take me full quickly, please. I'm going to point this pretty right up into the heart of this storm. If you watch closely, draw your eye, it's going to focus there. The raindrops making it a little bit more difficult. This is the shelf cloud that's passing through the area. Draw your attention to just the leading edge of this line and see how quickly these storms are racing off towards the east. These winds are going to be carrying this storm into Arkansas. We're talking about 60 to upwards of 70 mile per hour winds probably coming out of it at the ground level, and you can kind of see that translated here. That cloud deck's relatively low. Looks like it's moving right on top of the camera, so we got to it just in time. We'll pass this back a little bit further and notice this. Notice as we look off towards the east, here's the leading edge right here, and it's tracking quickly closer and closer into eastern LaFleur County. Soon that's going to be passing probably into Sebastian County as well. I know that doesn't give you a lot of context, but this is the leading edge of the storm where those winds are going to get breezy over the next few minutes. Soon the rain will pick up there in Poteau as well. Really great to have that brand new camera there come online just in time for severe storm season. We'll be using that a lot, I suspect, over the next few weeks. Brand new severe thunderstorm warning, this issued by the National Weather Service out of Little Rock. This is going to include majority of Scott County, and is for the same storm we were just taking a live look into. It also includes, as you'll notice there, a very small sliver of western Logan County. That severe thunderstorm warning issued out of the Weather Service in Little Rock, and that one is going to be set to expire at 9:15 this morning. So current time is 8:12. We'll have a little bit more than an hour to go with that specific warning. It was issued for the 60 mile per hour winds as well as some penny-sized hail. Can't be ruled out from that as well. I really want to go back to live Doppler winds. That's going to tell us what's happening here, not only with the straight line wind potential, and I can certainly see that really starting to materialize here south of Poteau. You see that line right there? That's going to be your strong winds. It's also got a bit of a curvature to it. We want to make sure nothing tries to spin up. The other thing that I'm really noticing is this bow echo. coming out of Fort Smith, or coming closer to the Fort Smith area, that's pretty much running parallel with Interstate 40. This is probably where you're going to start to see some more intense straight line winds. In addition to that, we'll have to watch really closely where these eddies start, that you very well could see some bookend tornadoes try to spin up. These would generally be weaker in nature. That's certainly something we've been tracking for the last little bit, and that signature has not gone away. Now, if there's any good news, and I don't want to say it's foolproof, because it's not. There's not much storm fuel, but because there's so much wind shear, that certainly could support something trying to spin up real quickly. So a little bit going on here. I suspect Sebastian County, even parts of Crawford, very well could be placed under some level of a warning, probably a severe thunderstorm warning in the next few minutes, especially with that bow echo developing right there. Let's take a closer look into Sequoyah County, and then we'll pop down to LaFleur County on that second segment there. This is going to be Fort Smith. We're looking at Muldrow right now. Winds picking up. It's probably pretty breezy in Sallisaw as well. Picola, the winds are about to get very breezy there in the river bottoms. That's all part of this bowing segment where you would see those winds really rushing out of it. And you start to see a bowing segment like that. Straight line winds are almost a guarantee. The question becomes, how strong are they? And that's approaching the Oklahoma-Arkansas state line. So heads up for the folks in Fort Smith. Looks like we do have a brand new warning in effect, as we just discussed was probably going to be the case. And that warning includes, looks like that warning is going to include a good chunk of Sebastian, if not all of Sebastian. It includes all of Crawford and western Franklin County. You can kind of see that pulsing there. The county line kind of disguises it just a little bit. But that's going to be the concern, damaging straight line winds. And we have to keep in mind, there's a reason the tornado watch is still in effect for parts of East Oklahoma. And we're going to really want to watch these two kinks right here on both sides of that bowing segment. And then you've also got some straight line winds south of Podo. Worcester, Heavener, you're probably going to be seeing those winds right now. I would expect that's the case with you folks there. Wind radar 40 knots or less. We measure it closer to get the radar. Okay. When you see me look offhand, we're talking with the Weather Service in real time and make sure we're all on the same page as we track this, and we are. That's the good news for us. Scott County, heads up, you are under that tornado watch as well. There's enough storm fuel in that part of the country that you could see something try to spin up quickly. It looks like damaging wind is going to be our primary concern, at least for the next few moments. As this storm is getting closer and closer to the radar, we're actually able to better sample what those winds are doing, which way they're turning, how fast they're blowing. And it looks like you might try to see something try to kink up there in southern LaFleur County as well. I know this image here, you might be looking at it and thinking, Scott, gosh, what in the world are all those colors? Just show me where the rain is. I'll do that. Give me a minute. This is going to be south of Heavener, west of Black Fork, damaging straight line winds up to 60 miles per hour, approaching the Oklahoma-Arkansas state line right now. Heads up Mansfield, Greenwood, Hackett, Lavaca, Charleston, Ozark. Looks like Ozark's not included in the warning. Mulberry is. PV, Mountainburg, Chester, just to name a few counties that are, a few towns that are in that new severe thunderstorm warning. We'll take off some of the colors here, give you an idea of what's what. And there's watches, there's warnings. We'll start with the most pressing, and that's going to be our severe thunderstorm warning. You can see that's going to be in orange. Folks that are included in that include Stillwell, Sallisaw, Muldrow, Brushy, Uniontown, Mountainburg, Alma, Mulberry, Van Buren, Fort Smith, Picola, Greenwood, Charleston, Mansfield. Boonville is not technically included in it. Waldron is. Heavener, Worcester, Podo, Picola, Blancett, Rich Mountain, as well as Mena, extending into Polk County, just to name a few of those larger towns that may be included. If you live around there, you're under this severe thunderstorm warning. This one on the Arkansas side expected to expire by 9:15. So we've got basically an hour to go in which we'll be looking at that potential of some severe damaging winds. Really, that's going to be it. We're looking at this line of storms right here, and it's getting messy out ahead of it. Rain is going to be helpful while it's heavy rain, and it's probably going to slow a lot of folks down on that morning commute. Rain's helping to mitigate what could be a more concerning signal for some damaging winds, even if you spin up tornadoes. That threat, while it is somewhat mitigated, it's not totally zero at this point. That's certainly something you're going to want to keep in mind over the next few minutes. Taking a look at some of our cameras out there. I'm going to spin one around. We'll look northeast. Nope, Nope, all good. Just wanted to add one of them pointing straight to the ground. Wasn't going to do me any good. Thank you guys, though. This is your line. Rain's picking up in Benton County. It's also going to be picking up in western Washington, but soon into central and eastern. So Fayetteville, Goshen, Elkins, Bella Vista. You got some moderate to heavy rain, and it is going to get breezy out there. But right now, the concern in northwest Arkansas somewhat limited, as the more pressing line is somewhat disorganized. I know you get closer to the Fort Smith area, south of Interstate 40. That line's a little bit more concerning. When's our next CBS cut in? Well, wait, what was it? In about 6 minutes, 8:25. Good to know. Okay, if you're just not joining us on 5 Plus, meteorologist Stephen Elmore here in the studio, as well as Joshua Weisel tracking this storm in the field. If at any point we want to take Joshua, I'd love to check in with him. He was traveling west, outside of West Washington County. This is a live look from the Stormchaser, Joshua Weisel, there this morning. A good look there as we travel towards the west. Rain's probably picking up in intensity, and you can see that there on the camera lens. You probably also got 40 to 50 mile per hour winds in that part of the area as well. He's actually in Evansville, now headed towards Crawford County. So it looks like he's going to try to intercept this part of that severe storm in Crawford, which is a good place for him to be to see something, should something actually develop. Good tracking there. Let's bring in meteorologist Stephen Elmore. I'll give you a second to give us an update on live radar and current watches and warnings.
Yeah, I got a couple new warnings out there right now. Again, that's crossing over from eastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas. Now Scott County, parts of Sebastian County, into Crawford and Franklin County as well. Those are the new warnings. That goes out until 8:45-ish. But, you know, as long as we continue to see these trends of this line, maybe starting to see more in the way of some activity starting to pick back up, we could definitely see the intensity of that line lead to more warnings throughout the rest of this morning. So far, northwest Arkansas has been left without a warning. That's good news for us. Just some heavy rainfall as you head out the door this morning across the river valley. That's where, when we take a look at the velocity, you see a lot more of those kinks starting to develop, some stronger winds involved in there as well. I want to take a second and kind of talk about those winds from northwest Arkansas and compare them to the river valley. What you see, Adair County, parts of Delaware County as well. You definitely see that line that's moving just through Stillwell right now. Very strong winds involved in that area as well right now. Central Adair County, that's moving off towards the east. 60-mile-an-hour winds could be found along that line. Siloam Springs definitely as well. Just even though you don't have that warning, more than likely some strong winds just out towards the west. That's going to be tracking our direction as well. But once you work south into the river valley, parts of eastern Oklahoma, that's where it gets a lot more messy. And there's that notch that we've been talking about that's now east of Salisaw that we're just keeping an eye on. Don't want to say that we're overly concerned about it right now and give you the wrong impression, but it is something that we're keeping an eye on. The rest of that line, as you work continuously south, looks a little bumpy. You see a lot of those waves. That's where we have to keep a close eye on. That's why you also see the National Weather Service extending that warning into parts of western Arkansas, parts of the river valley now, not only due to the chance of seeing those kinks, but also just those straight line winds. Those are going to pack a punch, anywhere from 60 up to 70-mile-an-hour winds. That can cause some damage in its own, if anything, at least cause some slowdowns for this morning. Of course, time is right now 8:21, so I imagine that unfortunately we're getting very close, if not right now at the time where a lot of those kiddos heading already there. That would be the good news, but we don't want to get caught on the roadways when that line of thunderstorms moves in. So of course, plan accordingly. Try to, at least this morning, that line trying to cross over shortly here over the state line into parts of Sebastian, into parts of Scott County as well. Just want to double check something. I believe that warning goes out. That's going out until 9:15. That warning, including Scott and parts of Logan County. Once for Sebastian County, that's also going out until 9:15. So we're just after 8:25 here. So we got a little less than an hour on those warnings. They take up a lot of area as well, but they're also extended for a long amount of time as well. We talked about how earlier in the morning, this line of thunderstorms was moving very fast. We're talking close to 60-mile-an-hour movement of these storms off towards the east, northeast. Since then, these storms have really started to slow down. But if anything, over the past 15, 20 minutes or so, what we've noticed is that maybe starting to pick up a little bit more in the way of that intensity. Not seeing anything direct right now, but rather just following some of those notches across the area. Let's take an area-wide look. What we got right now, what you definitely see is a lot more of that rainfall moving in and and around the area. Mostly further closer towards Oklahoma state line you work, that's where you're going to find the heaviest rainfall. And that line of thunderstorms that we've been following that's obviously warned right now, that's getting very close to the state line. You work further east, let's talk about Carroll, let's talk about Madison, Johnson, Logan, parts of Franklin County, and parts of Scott County that aren't warned right now. You're starting to get some of that rain, but overall, you've got a while before that line of thunderstorms where the heaviest punch is going to be for those strong winds. And who's to say if that line of thunderstorms survives that long when it comes to using that storm fuel, that storm energy, like Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's been talking about. Not a lot of it available, but enough to still raise the concern of some warnings out there. We're keeping a very close eye with the National Weather Service out of Tulsa and Little Rock for the consistent updates they provide for us. They're providing updates on signs that they see as well. As of now, though, we have those warnings out until effect until 9:15, getting ahead of time of where that line would land. And one thing I'm going to do here is we're going to take a look. This warning has it listed as moving at just, let's see here, 50 east at 50 miles per hour. So picking up a little bit of that speed. So what I'm going to do here is draw that line out and give you a best idea of the timing of right now. We got that cut-in going in a couple minutes. Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's going to do that CBS cut-in for you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Meteorologist Stephen Elmore, Joshua Weisel, myself, Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert, tracking a line of severe thunderstorms moving through the area this morning. Current time's 8:25. Our primary concern is going to be in parts of Adair, Sequoia, LaFleur, now moving into Crawford, Sebastian, parts of Franklin, and Scott counties. Damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour. Very possible on the leading edge of this line of thunderstorms that's continuing to track off towards the east. Damaging wind is going to be our primary concern. With that said, we can't rule out that there very well could be an isolated tornado potential. There is a tornado watch in effect for parts of southeast Oklahoma into parts of Scott County in Arkansas as well. I do want to show you what those watches look like right now. And then we're going to come back to velocity here in just a minute. And there's a reason I want to show you velocity. So first with the warnings and watches, pink's going to be your severe thunderstorm watch. Orange is going to be where your severe thunderstorm is active right now. Yellow is going to be our tornado watch. Now, I want to go back to velocity for a couple of reasons. Velocity is how we measure wind speeds and wind direction. There was also something we've been noticing over the last 30 to 40 minutes. This little hook, this little appendage, or you can kind of see a kink in that line as it pushes into eastern Sequoia County, getting closer to the Oklahoma-Arkansas state line. That's where, if there were to be a tornado to develop, it very well could. You start to get these eddies that spin up on the leading edge of these systems, especially where you find this bowing segment. You would watch areas like this for that potential, and it's certainly possible that something could try to develop in that area. It's tracking closer and closer to that Oklahoma-Arkansas state line. No immediate tornado potential at this moment, but that's not to say things might not change in a short period of time. That's why we watch these things as closely as we do. Now, there's a lot of rain with this system, probably a lot of wind with it out there as well. That's moving towards Fort Smith right now. That severe thunderstorm warning set to expire at 8:45. Picola, Poto, Roland, Salisaw included in that warning. 60-mile-per-hour winds. Couldn't rule out a little bit of hail mixing in there at time, but I'll tell you, it's probably more or less rain than anything else. We'll take a broader perspective as this tracks off towards the east. Your primary concern, and it's kind of tough to see, it's this line right here. That's where the wind is, and along the leading edge of that line is where there very well could be some rotation trying to develop along those bowing segments. Behind that line, while there's a lot of rain coming, it's just that. And that's why we'll continue to track this over the next few hours. Our watch is set to expire at 11 o'clock this morning. We're tracking these storms live over on 5 Plus. We'll be back with more updates right here on 5 News as well. All right, good morning to everyone once more on 5 Plus. If you're just now joining us, I want to back up and look at something. We're going to do some science in real time, so bear with me if this gets a little bit tricky. I'm going to go back into the correlation coefficient, which is our debris tracker. And you're going to notice here near Roland that there's a little bit of what we would call a dropout. You notice those blues there? That's going to be just to the west of Snow Road, north of Interstate 40. That very well could be a debris signature that maybe we did see a bit of a spin up over the last few minutes. It somewhat correlates, which is important, to where the velocity would suggest there could have been that kink in the line. So it's certainly possible that we did see something there north of Roland, getting closer to the Dora area. Hard to say. Rotation, it's really just not that all that impressive, but it's very possible something tried to spin up real quickly between radar scans. And you look at the winds a little bit differently. It's really not near as tight as you would think it would have been to produce some level of rotation. It is interesting, though, to note that on our debris tracker that is there. In fact, we'll actually back this up a little bit further in time, and we'll maybe just try to track the progression of this. This is going to be 8:18, so this was a little delayed. Fascinating. Okay, we'll have to watch that very closely over the next few minutes. Live radar right now shows that leading edge of that line, getting ready to move into Arkansas. Heavener, Picola, Roland, Stillwell, right now where that area of rotation is noted. Folks up in the booth, this is going to get interesting, and I need your help to accommodate this quickly, please, okay? I need you to bring up Stephen utilizing Max 2, okay? Can you bring up Stephen using Max 2? He's going to take it away from there. Let me know when that can be accommodated. While they're working on getting that switched over, a little bit of shuffling taking place. Let's walk through the active warnings right now. It's getting really messy out there. You got to look for these orange lines. They're kind of tough to see with as much rain as there is, but it does include parts of Adair, the eastern fringe of Sequoia, LaFleur, all of Crawford, all of Sebastian, a good chunk of Scott, parts of western Franklin County, even a sliver of western Logan County. That's going to be for the severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect. Currently set to expire in 45 minutes. Current time is 8:30, and we're looking to see that expire at 9:15. If I could get an update from the booth, please. I'm wanting him from the weather desk on Max 2, and I want it to happen real quickly if I could. Stephen, can you go to the weather desk, please? Perfect, thank you.
All right, let's take a look. We got Max 2 pulled up on big board. Yes, is that correct? Folks in the booth, is that Max 1 or Max 2? Okay, great. Let's take it to the big board then. Kind of got you a look of what's actively going on right now. We got those warnings going on across parts of let's see here, parts of Adair down to Sequoia and LaFleur County, Crawford, Scott, and Sebastian County, parts of Franklin County also as well, which you see highlighted in that yellow polygon right there. What Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert is drawing your attention to is that within the warning, in some places we're also seeing there parts of Sequoia County near that Salisaw kind of hook that we've been talking about. That's where some of those tightest spots of rotation is starting to pop up right now. Now, whether or not we had something brief, that's what he's working on right now to see if we can see some signs of some returns that came back from that. Outside of that, what we've got from northwest Arkansas down through the river valley is that line of thunderstorms, that squall line that's producing some really strong winds ahead of that line. In that warning polygon, what you could find 60 up to 70 mile an hour winds. Doesn't mean that you're seeing that actively right now. Those are those wind gusts that at the peak part of that storm you could see gusting up to about 60 mile per hour winds. This is starting to become a bit of a resurgence where we saw that activity dying down maybe just a little bit, but especially from Sequoia County to parts of Crawford, Sebastian, that part of the line right there starting to pick up some more energy. And actually, as I'm looking at it right now, what you see there is that line just over the state line. So you know where you're driving on this morning, or you know where you live compared to that. Right on that state line is where those strongest winds are. stretching from Crawford County through Sebastian County, just moving out of parts of LaFleur and Sequoia County right now. You're waking up across northwest Arkansas. What you got is some very heavy rainfall right now. So far, we have been without a severe thunderstorm warning this morning. Hopefully, it stays that way. Definitely the southern end of this line has been where the most energy has been, the most instability, leading us to those severe thunderstorm warnings so far this morning. That can't mean that we wouldn't be out without any severe weather throughout the rest of this morning, but the hope is that we continue this trend of just seeing, yes, some stronger winds in northwest Arkansas, but not crossing over the severe limit, but then also having to be concerned about the heavy rainfall threat as well. Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's got that latest update for you.
All right, we continue to track this line of severe thunderstorms pushing off towards the east. Now, the line itself, where those most intense winds are likely to be, is pretty much right on top of the Oklahoma-Arkansas state line. Now, in addition to the damaging wind potential, we've got up to 60 miles per hour through that, let's say, Crawford, Adair, Sequoia, Sebastian, LaFleur County area. You've also got up to 50 mile per hour winds, which technically isn't severe, and that's ongoing across parts of Washington and Benton County. I want to go back to something that we were looking at very, very closely. We've been talking about that potential for that kink to develop across parts of Sequoia County. Now, when's our next cut in, by the way? So I'm going to back up here. This is going to be over the last few minutes, and it looks like we very well could have seen a brief spin up eastern Sequoia County. Now, this is debris tracker. I know it looks psychedelic, but you want to look for this blue here. And what that is the radar saying, hey, there's a whole bunch of rain, maybe even a little bit of hail. There's hydrological things that should be up in the atmosphere, raindrops, hailstones. But there's also, where it shows the blue, there's something showing up that's the wrong size, that's not that hail, and it's not raindrops. And it denotes that to us by highlighting that area in blue. And anytime we see that, and it matches up where there could have very well been a little bit of rotation, that's going to be a concern for us, and that's what that was showing us right there. Live Doppler radar is going to continue to show there's no active tornado warning, so I don't want to tell you there's an active tornado warning at the moment, but there is a severe thunderstorm warning. We're standing by to go live on 5 News. All right, good morning, everybody. Right now it is 8:35. We're tracking a strong line of severe thunderstorms moving into west Arkansas from east Oklahoma. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Adair, Sequoia, LaFleur, Crawford, Sebastian, Scott, even parts of Logan and Franklin County. That's where the winds right now could be reaching 60 miles per hour, straight line winds. In northwest Arkansas, Benton and Washington County, you can expect winds up to 50 miles per hour in addition to very heavy rainfall. Watches in effect through 11 o'clock this morning. All right, continuing everything here on Live 5 Plus. Wanted to get an update on over on CBS. Now we can turn our attention back to this. I'm going to go back to that correlation coefficient. That's the technical aspect of what this product is called. The debris tracker is what we call it between friends, but correlation coefficients is the actual technical term that it's used. Right now, not showing any debris there, but you back it up a few minutes, and it's certainly possible we saw something outside of Roland. Now, if this were to have happened, it went unwarned, which is unfortunate. Not ready to say that it did. Wouldn't mind if we heard from some folks in Roland, Dora, Remy, east of Muldrow there, between, let's say, Muldrow and the state line. If you know of anything, we would love to see your reports. I'll put my number here up on the screen real quick. This is going to be 479-785-5000. We are getting those text messages in here. I know it's going to be tough to see. Let me pull that out of the area. There you go. This is our cell phone number. If you have a report of damage or maybe you saw something, we'd love to know about it. 479-785-5000. Here's what's really important, though. I just need you to include your name and your location. Location being one of the most important things. We look at rotation right now. There's no actual rotation with this system. Earlier, though, it had a little bit of a kink, a little bit of a notch, and that's what you want to look for when you are tracking the potential of some rotation. And that's just not the case right now. That's not to say it wasn't a little bit earlier. That's certainly a real possibility, especially when you look at that debris signature. Looked certainly like we very well could have seen a little bit of debris lofted in the atmosphere with that storm. Leading edge on the southern flank of the storm has now pushed into parts of southern Sebastian, southern Scott County, or really a good chunk of Scott County there. That line is where you're going to find those strongest winds. So it's blowing out a little bit further off towards the east on the southern end of that line. Meanwhile, we're lagging a little bit later across parts of northwest Arkansas. It's all moving off towards the east, northeast, about 30-ish miles per hour. That's been common for the most part with this system. It's really losing its organization. And you look at it now, if you look closely, you can kind of find where that line is, but it's not nearly as organized as it once was. What I'll do is I'll back that up a ways, and you can notice a couple hours ago, you had a very, very defined line. And then it really just loses its organization. Pouring rain in Van Buren, thank you so much. In between Muldrow and Roland, around the area of possible rotation a little west of it, not even strong wind here during that. Thank you, Amanda, for that report. Yeah, very interesting signal. The rotation really wasn't necessarily there. Radar just may be being tricked by something. It may think there was debris, but the fact that it happened where that Boeing segment was has me curious, to say the least. We'll see what comes of that. Right now, the threat's just going to be damaging winds, even some hail. Small hail may be mixing in here and there. For the most part, I think it's just going to be some heavy rain. Let's do this. If we could get some help, let's take a tour around the area on some RDOT cameras. It is 8:39. A lot of folks out there on that morning rush. I suspect travel is greatly reduced in terms of speed this morning, just given how much rain and even a little bit of wind that's moving through the area. Severe weather as well. Special weather statement just issued. That's probably going to be for Benton and Washington County, if I had to guess. Yep, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, which is not severe. Technically, it's 60 mile per hour plus to get a severe thunderstorm warning, and we're not meeting that criteria in Washington and Benton County. Just let me know whenever you guys are ready to look at some RDOT cameras, or if, okay, this is going to be where? This is going to be the Welcome Center in Van Buren, there along Interstate 40. Rain definitely coming down. That's probably going to be in the middle of the most intense rain. That's going to be looking off towards the east, so traveling away from the storm. If you're traveling fast enough, you might be able to outrun it, but I'll tell you, it's going to be somewhat tough to do. Okay, what else do we got? Going to be the 540 bridge between Fort Smith and Van Buren. Travel's moving just a little bit slower out there. Water's choppy. Those winds are going to be blowing at times. We're talking gusts, so not sustained gusts, as high as about 60 miles per hour with that storm rolling through the area. Okay, we're taking a live look now. That's going to be the Arkansas-Oklahoma state line. Looking towards the east there, rain continues to come down. Not a lot of volume out there on the roadways. What do we have in northwest Arkansas? Those 50 mile per hour winds. I'd love to look around I-49, let's say near Rogers area. While we're pulling those cameras up, getting a report of ponding on 0 Street in Fort Smith. That doesn't surprise me one bit. Now here's a live look from Walton Boulevard. We're looking towards the south, so northbound traffic is going to be all those headlights. That's typical to see that level of volume this early in the morning. We'll have to see if we don't see some accidents on the as more of the heavy rain begins to move into the area. This is going to be a look from Southeast 14th Street along I-49. Slow going out there. You'll want to budget a few extra minutes to get where you're going. Good news is I think a lot of the kids got to school before the heaviest of rain and the wind moved in. That's good news. Unfortunately, we still have one severe thunderstorm warning in effect that runs until 9:15 for several counties in our area. That includes Adair, Sequoia, LaFleur, Crawford, Sebastian, Franklin, Scott counties. This is a live look along I-49 in Pleasant Grove. So northbound traffic going to be moving a little bit slower. Southbound traffic also going to be moving a little bit slower out there. Thank you for your help there. Let's go back to live radar as we track these storms. Boy, it's messy out there. And I'll tell you, we have really good radar data, mostly because we're right on top of the radar. So having a pretty good picture into this storm. Our severe weather threat's not over. We very well could be seeing some damaging straight line winds out of this system. But as we've lost storm fuel, we've lost organization, these are really just becoming more of a rain threat for a lot of us. Flash flooding, and we got that report of some ponding there on 0 Street. I think that's probably where we're going to start to see more and more of those issues over the next few hours. Not only do you see that, but if you look, you're not finding as much lightning on our maps, which tells us these storms are also weakening. So the worst is probably behind behind us, but that doesn't necessarily mean the threat is over entirely. We'll go take a look at some of the watches. We'll see if they've been trimmed up any at all. These watches technically set to expire at 11 o'clock, but what you'll find is as the Weather Service assesses, hey, the threat is cleared back off to our west, they'll cancel county by county. So soon you'll probably see some of these counties that are still under a watch. They're going to start falling off the map, and that trend will continue from the west to the east as the threat passes. Pink here is going to be your thunderstorm watch. That runs through 11 o'clock this morning. Current time is 8:42. The yellow is going to be your tornado watch. That's also running through 11 o'clock this morning at the latest. I suspect a lot of us will probably be dropped from these watches before that happens. Okay, let's take a look live radar. I'm going to do this before we toss to Joshua Weisel, who's in the 5 News Stormchaser. He's near Cedarville. Let's take a look at what things look like on radar before we talk to him. He's probably going to be really close to the heaviest part of that band. In fact, what we'll do is we'll take off that warning. We're aware of the information. Here you go. Heaviest part's going to be this line right here. It's kind of tough to dissect, but where you find those reds extending from, let's say, west of Mountainburg, running almost parallel with 49, intersecting Interstate 40 through the Fort Smith area. That's where we're going to find the heaviest winds and the heaviest rainfall. That's where pretty close to where Joshua Weisel is at right now in the 5 News Stormchaser. Joshua, what can you tell us from where you're seeing? Wow. Joshua, I don't know if you can hear me. It looks like you are in the most intense part of the rain and
Yeah, we can tell you that we are starting to get into the heaviest portion of this. Our rain is picked. Sorry, we're kind of cutting in and out. We are entering Cedarville. We are in the heaviest portion of this. And as you can see, our wind is starting to kick up, our rain is starting to kick up, can't really see in front of us, so definitely starting to roll in through here. We are just about in the heaviest portion of this as we're entering into Cedarville, and yeah, you can just see it's not too intense from what we're seeing, so I don't think that it's those 70-mile-per-hour winds that we were seeing earlier with this segment, but it's definitely not a fun drive for people who are trying to get around this area. So just if you don't have to get out right now, definitely stay home for a little bit, even if it means that you're going to be a little bit late to where you're going. As you can see, not a whole lot of visibility due to the heavy rainfall and the wind starting to kick up. So we are currently on Highway 59, and we are coming up on Cedarville here short. So we're near the Cedarville convenience store. For those who know exactly where we're at, we're around there, and we're continuing to go south. We were going to go investigate that little area that had that notch earlier and that kind of bow segment. So if we see anything too dramatic, we'll let you know. But right now, this is kind of the leading edge of the worst part of this storm. Winds are fairly kicking up and just lots and lots of heavy rainfall. Wouldn't surprise me if we see maybe a localized flooding risk, just because we're already seeing a lot of ponding off to the sides with these little side creeks and side areas of the road. So just keep that in mind. Also, ponding on roadways will be possible due to this very, very heavy rainfall. Going to send this back to you.
Joshua, incredible report there. So he's along Highway 59 near Cedarville. So he's really in the thick of where that storm is most intense right now, pushing into Crawford. That line, though, extends further south. So we're looking at the very similar intensity in Sebastian County now, that extending into Scott County. Soon that moves into western Franklin, western Logan County. It is slowly but surely weakening. You don't find as much lightning out there. It's not as organized as it once was. Winds starting to come down a little bit. But still an impressive signature. And the other thing that you might notice here, there is a line segment across western Benton and western Washington County, so you can expect winds here up to about 50 miles per hour. That's not technically severe. There's a technical threshold in which has to be met, and that's 58 miles an hour or greater. Sometimes I just round up to 60 for the sake of it. We're not meeting that at the moment, but we're close to it, right? Certainly going to blow some things around. And so, you know, we'll have to watch that really closely. Make sure nothing changes there. I think, though, with things generally weakening, we may very well be able to avoid severe weather in northwest Arkansas, though it's ongoing right now in the River Valley. And that's not necessarily surprising. It was always going to be further south where we saw that potential for more severe weather. In fact, I'll even show you the storm zones for today. We'll take a larger perspective. You can see we're trimming it from the west to the east, just like the watches that'll continue to take place. Level 2 for many of us. This was largely unchanged from overnight, just some minor tweaks from the Storm Prediction Center. But the further south you go, you get closer to that level 3 potential, which still technically is in effect for parts of southern LaFleur, although I'll tell you things are really quickly winding down. The rain's going to continue. But from a severe weather aspect, that threat's diminishing across parts of East Oklahoma. We really turn our attention now to West Arkansas across a good majority of the Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley on the Arkansas side. If you get further south, there's a little bit more storm fuel for these storms to tap into. Now, there's a lot of wind energy available for these storms, and that's why they're maintaining themselves despite the fact that there's just not much storm fuel. I'll tell you, we dodge a lot of bullets around here with these severe weather threats. It can't be underestimated or understated, I should say, how much of a bullet we're dodging with this event. When you look at the wind energy, this is better than textbook. When you want severe weather and you want supercells and you want tornado genesis, you want wind energy like today. Of course, none of us actually want that, but you get my point. If you're trying to create a setup in which is going to support tornadoes, the wind profiles that we're seeing today are about as good as they get. But because the storm fuel is so low, thankfully, we're dodging what could have been a much more serious issue. I want to go back to something. We were tracking, this could be important to you folks in Sequoyah County. I kind of told you about that debris tracker that showed a little bit of something there in Sequoyah County. We'll back up over to that. I'll show you what it is, and we do have some information as to what it is and probably what it wasn't. Back this up a little bit, and you kind of see right here. Boy, I know it's messy and I know it's tough to pinpoint out there, but what we're looking at is what the radar suggests is just rain and hail versus things that shouldn't be up in the atmosphere. And anytime you see a pocket of blue, that's the radar saying, hey, there's something up here in my beam that ain't supposed to be here. And many times in severe weather, that's leaves and twigs and branches and shingles, debris, right? And we call it a debris tracker. Yeah, I saw this blue earlier, a little concerning because it was pretty well co-located where we saw a kink in the line. And so you start to think, okay, did we have a tornado warning, or do we have a tornado on the ground that went unwarned? It becomes a concern for us, right? It looks like that was actually, this is from the National Weather Service out of Tulsa. They're the ones that issue the warnings. Despite the fact that it was attempting to spin up, that drop or that blue area, that potential of debris, was actually just a computer algorithm just detecting something, some ground clutter, nothing real. We probably weren't actually looking at anything tornadic, and we got a report, I forget your name already, Amanda maybe? I'm so sorry. You sent a report in, I read it, I've already forgotten. There's a lot going on this morning, that it was just some light rain at the moment. So we're getting a lot of information now that tells us we probably didn't have anything at all, which is good news. The threat now is going to be the flash flooding potential. You saw some ponding reports along Zero Street in Fort Smith, getting some reports from emergency managers in Van Buren, some localized flooding there as well. You're probably going to start to see that area-wide. There's a few reasons why. Not only is the storm system itself losing its structure, it's not as linear as it once was, but it's kind of slowing down a little bit. And when this thing slows down, it's going to dump a lot of rain over the same places over and over and over again. Initially this morning, it's going to be those places that you often see the flash flooding, low-lying areas. And you know where they're at if you're in your neighborhoods or where they're at on your morning commute. That's where it's going to start to deteriorate first. And we may very well see some additional flash flooding in other places. We'll pass that information along to you should we receive any of those reports. Right now, though, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning for the southern flank of this actual line, if you even want to call it that anymore. It's really losing most of its organization. It's going to be this orange polygon here that runs until 9:15, so current time's 8:51. They'll probably run it through. At this point, we're close enough to 9:15. They'll probably have to run it through, and then it'll be allowed to expire. The pink here, that's going to be your severe thunderstorm watch. Set to technically expire at 11 o'clock. I think we'll probably see some progress, especially in Oklahoma first. Yellow is going to be our tornado watch that technically also runs through 11 o'clock this morning. I think we'll probably see a lot of those counties being dropped off over the next few minutes. I want to bring back in meteorologist Stephen Elmore for a few minutes if you want to walk us through radar. And Stephen, what would actually be really helpful for us is to spend some time on Futurecast. Talk about not only this morning's severe weather threat, this afternoon's potential for some additional showers. There's snow in the forecast tonight. Just speaks to how powerful this system is. And then, Stephen, if you could, also take a look at the non-thunderstorm winds that we're going to be enduring tonight into tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about that, cover that while Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's working on some things offhand. Let's take a look at our radar really quick. I want to get you a timeline. We're just shy of 9 a.m. right now, so we still got more than likely a lot of folks out on the roadways. We tracked this out, give you the latest timeline of when this is going to be arriving. At least what I want to do for here, everybody's seeing some type of rain right now, whether moderate or that heavy rainfall. You can tell that between the different colors you see there on the screen. Well, what we're following for the concern of is those strong winds associated with that very disorganized line of thunderstorms. And so where I'm drawing that line and dragging out towards is the rest of our viewing area that has the chance of at least seeing this line of thunderstorms impacting your neck of the woods. So that's Alma at 8:55. That's here in about 2 minutes. Centerton at 9:05, 9:11 at Bentonville, 9:13 Fayetteville, 9:23 there in Prairie Creek. Paris at 9:35, Huntsville at 9:48, Eureka Springs 9:51, just shy of 10 a.m. there in Clarksville, just after 10 a.m. there in Berryville, and Russellville, just outside of our viewing area at 10:25 a.m. this morning. So still got a while, and while as we've been showing you the past. All right, we got 1 minute until our CBS cut-in, so we'll go ahead and try to reset things here and show you kind of a wide view of this, and I'll get rid of that tracker there. But still got a while to go this morning. But I tell you what, the good news is that line of thunderstorms is going to become really disorganized this morning. And as we progress throughout the rest of the morning, the hope is, since there's not a lot of storm fuel, not a lot of storm energy out there, that we would continue to see these trends. And unfortunately, then we'd be just turning into the chances for a flooding event. So we got about 30 seconds until that CBS cut in. And if you are with us on 5+, our streaming platforms, still continue to join us. We're going to hop off and be right back. All right, happy Tuesday morning to you. 5 News meteorologist Stephen Elmore, joined by 5 News Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert. It's been a busy morning so far. We were tracking that line of thunderstorms out of eastern Oklahoma, crossing over into the state line, and now everybody this morning is seeing a lot of heavy rainfall, but also we're still talking about where that line of thunderstorms is. While much weaker now, still you could find some strong to damaging wind gusts out there, especially in parts of the river valley. What you see is that severe zone still, that severe warning still parts of Crawford County, parts of Sebastian County, and then as far south as Scott County as well. That's where you could see 50 up to 60 mile an hour winds along that leading edge of where we could find some of those damaging winds as well. Northwest Arkansas, so far this morning, we have avoided any severe weather. That's the good news. Still, you could find around 40, maybe 50 mile an hour wind gusts that would still help blow some things around, but overall staying just below the severe limits. What's still severely warned right now is parts of the river valley. And I want to give you an update on kind of some towns that are in the line of what's that line of thunderstorms coming in. Greenwood down to Mansfield, Alma, that's where those strongest winds are right now. Eventually, this system moving at about a rate of around 30 up to 40 miles per hour off towards the east. Eventually down the line, Waldron, Boonville, up to Paris, Ozark, and Clarksville. Down the line, we could be seeing that line of thunderstorms still progressing off towards the east. Now, over the past half hour to an hour or so, we've really seen this line of thunderstorms really starting to weaken. So who's to say if that line continues to produce those damaging winds that far out? out. We're just shy of 9 a.m. right now, so that warning goes out until 9:15, unless we hear from the National Weather Service that they're going to go ahead and extend that warning. More than likely, we would just be following the latest trends of how strong those winds are locally. So we'll have to wait and see if the National Weather Service wants to go ahead and extend that warning or not. That should be coming here in just the next few minutes. They more than likely will send us that message and say, hey, we're either going to extend it or we're going to just let it go ahead and expire. Here's a look across the area. Unfortunately, everybody is going to be dealing with some very heavy rainfall this morning. Again, just shy of 9 a.m. More than likely, we got a lot of drivers out there on the road this morning. If you live west of that line of thunderstorms that you see stretched from Benton County down to Scott County, you live west of it, you're in the clear from when it comes to that severe zone risk for that line of thunderstorms. You still got lots of rainfall, but when it comes to those damaging wind threats, more than likely you're in the clear. Now, by the time we get to this evening, though, we get that wraparound moisture, some colder air filters in, and I can't rule out maybe a few snowflakes by the time we get to tomorrow morning, mainly in northwest Arkansas, little to no accumulation. We'll continue to provide updates throughout the rest of this morning on our live streaming platforms. All right, back on 5 Plus and our streaming platforms this morning. Good news is we're still following these trends of this line of thunderstorms that's continued to progress. And while it's progressed from eastern Oklahoma into northwest Arkansas and the River Valley, we've seen some good signs. Overall, a lot of weakening going on. Sure, there were some moments where we saw maybe that line of thunderstorms in Sequoia County crossing over into Crawford and Sebastian County start to re-intensify just a bit. Seeing some of those stronger winds. That's why they issued that next warning leading out, crossing over into western Arkansas. But since then, some good news. One being that not seeing a lot of those kinks in the line anymore. That would lead to us to believe that there could be some rotation in that area. But we take a look at velocity, and what you see is still a very defined line, still some very strong winds. Let's start with northwest Arkansas. This is what's called that special weather statement. What does that mean for you? Well, that 60-mile-an-hour threshold is what we need to cross over to get a warning. That's what we want to avoid, right? Well, we're just shy of that threshold, so still some strong winds, just not what's considered severe by the National Weather Service. So where's those winds at right now? Well, they passed through Salem Springs, they passed through Westville, and now they're moving into parts of Benton County, parts of Washington County. Eventually, here in just the next few minutes, this is going to cross over I-49. While it's not severe winds, it is still very annoying and very strong outside to the point where they issue that special weather statement. Could be tricky here in the next 15, 20 minutes or so to be driving along I-49, no matter what direction, as that line of thunderstorms continues to push off towards the east. And that leading edge provides us the chance of seeing some of those stronger winds. I'm going to go ahead and loop this over the last hour and see the progression of those strong winds. And then let's get a little bit closer here. Actually, so just passed through the Decatur area, but coming up shortly, we're gonna pause that right there. Coming up shortly, Bentonville, Rogers, Lowell, Springdale, Fayetteville. This is where those strongest winds are going to be, and that's pressing off towards the east. Again, below the severe limits, but still enough to be pretty tricky outside when you're driving, whether you're going on 412 or they're going on I-49, anywhere between Benton and Washington County. That's what's coming up here in the near future. Across the River Valley, a little bit of a different story. We have those winds out there, and yes, we are still looking for the signs of a few kinks here and there. The good news is not seeing a lot of that right now. We still have that severe warning stretching from Crawford County, parts of Franklin County, into Sebastian, Logan, and Scott County. That's for these strong straight line winds stretching from Alma down to Greenwood and Mansfield. But that's also starting to see some signs of at least trying to weaken. We still could find some wind gusts near 60 miles per hour. That's why we have that warning. But the hope is, as we continue to progress, as we continue to go throughout the morning hours and not have enough of that storm energy, that storm fuel, that eventually we would drop below the severe limits, and then it would just turn into a flooding risk and maybe some localized high winds mixed in there as well. Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert talked earlier about that spot that we were keeping an eye on there in Sequoia County. Out of the National Weather Service providing some information. Once everybody, all the meteorologists saw, hey, there is something weird going on there. They do their own independent research, finding out that it was just a blip in the algorithm, finding out, hey, we're all okay. Just happened to be right next to where that notch was. So that led us to believe that, maybe something happened there that was missed. Good news is we avoided that. Still, though, some very strong winds came through that area, up to 60 miles per hour or even higher at some point. So, again, that's what was a little bit earlier with that last notch that we had. Now we're just going to be following the trends of what definitely the southern end of this line is producing. Do we see more in the way of some of those kinks? Do we see some winds starting to intensify once again? It's definitely possible as we progress throughout the morning hours, but right now not seeing much of that activity. Let's take a look at the watches real quick, and I'll back it out here to show you what the latest information is. Everything you see in yellow there, more than likely, we're going to see some of these counties starting to be dropped from the watch because that line has pushed off towards the east. I imagine National Weather Service is working on that right now. Parts of Scott County still underneath that tornado watch. That goes out until 11 a.m. Since it's 9 a.m. right now, I don't know if we'll make it that far. More than likely, we'll see that drop to it down the line, but still going to hang on to that tornado watch as it stands right now. Everything else you see shaded in pink, that's that severe thunderstorm watch. And while we have that line of thunderstorms, and that just happened live right there. So again, this is a good update for us. Everyone in eastern Oklahoma that was underneath that tornado watch, now you're out of that tornado watch. National Weather Service saying there's no longer a threat for that rotation, no longer a threat for those tornadoes. We're going to go ahead and cancel this watch early. Good news for us. Still, Scott County, though, highlighted with that yellow tornado watch that goes out still as of right now until 11 a.m. We'll provide updates if that changes. Until then, everything shaded in pink, that severe thunderstorm watch. Again, when you take a look at what current radar looks like right now, more than likely what you see is the chances of that strong wind ahead of that line of thunderstorms. And I'll go ahead and pull that up here before Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert takes back over. What you see here is a very thin line stretching from, basically, you can follow I-49 until you get to the changeover, and then across the river valley, that warning continues through Scott County. So that very thin line of thunderstorms, that out ahead of that is where you would find the strongest winds, where you would find that severe thunderstorm warning in the river valley. The hope is that in northwest Arkansas, we don't cross over that. But ahead of that line, you can still find wind gusts up to 40, 50 miles per hour. And we'll continue to provide you updates throughout the rest of this morning. Got lots of updates still to come as well. Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's going to go ahead and take things over.
All right, let's do a little bit of a reset here. It's 9:04. You might be watching on 5+. I know we're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube as well. A little bit of a temperature trek, no pun intended. We're on the downward slide here. Severe weather threat, not entirely over, but we are certainly but surely transitioning to more of just a heavy rain potential. We do have a flood advisory in effect for now in northwest Arkansas. And meanwhile, that one severe thunderstorm warning in effect for about 11 more minutes for parts of Crawford, Sebastian, Franklin, parts of Scott counties as well. Now, something that I was looking at that's a little bit of interest to me, we go back to the velocity mode. We're just looking at winds here, and you might notice in northwest Arkansas, the radar, which at this point is looking probably 2,000 to 3,000 feet above the surface, you're starting to see a pretty clear line there, and that's going to be some heavier, higher winds. We'll take a closer look into northwest Arkansas, and we'll sample some of those wind speeds, and the numbers that I'm about to put on the map are going to be somewhat impressive. Here's the thing. 74 miles per hour near Bentonville, 81 miles per hour near Springdale, getting closer to Fayetteville, right around 84 miles per hour. Here's the thing, that's about 3,000 to 4,000 feet above the surface. So not all of that is actually making it to the ground. Certainly some of it is, and we can look at some of our weather stations and get an idea of what those gusts are. It's probably falling just shy of what we would need to issue a severe thunderstorm warning. Technically, the Weather Service requires 60 miles per hour before they'll issue those warnings. We're probably coming pretty close to that. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have to issue a little bit of a warning there. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center just sent us a note saying, hey, you might want to watch northwest Arkansas. There is going to be that potential for a little bit of a rebound. It's not overall not impressive. It's a very thin, narrow band running almost parallel with I-49, tracking close to Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville, probably in those metro areas in the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'll put a track on that real closely to give you some more precise timing. Moving off towards the east-northeast at about 30 miles per hour. Puts that in Centerton around 9:08, so about 3 minutes. Tawnytown around 9:10. Arvest Ballpark there in Springdale, 9:13. Downtown Fayetteville, 9:17. Springdale at 9:20. Rogers, 9:22. A little bit further towards the east, you get to War Eagle, 9:44. Hinesville there in Madison County around 9:51. That's assuming it doesn't speed up or slow down, which at this point I think it may slow down, if anything at all. Some heavy winds, lots of heavy rain out there. Flooding potential starting to increase for those in northwest Arkansas. Flash flooding, right? So we're not talking river flooding. We're talking those low-lying areas. You get some standing water to rush through the area. Weather Service did issue a flood advisory for parts of northwest Arkansas just a few moments ago, pretty much the entire area. As this storm system slows down, it's losing a little bit of steam. That's going to be our concern. We're dropping the severe weather threat for East Oklahoma. You've got the all clear. Rain's going to continue. Heck, you might even see a little bit of lightning here, some thunder, but the severe weather potential at this point is almost entirely just for damaging winds. 60 mile per hour very well could be coming out of that storm. It's starting to roll through parts of central Crawford, eastern Sebastian County. We'll take a closer look at some of the towns that are probably going to be seeing those winds here real soon. That warning set to expire 9:15. In addition to that potential of some hail and wind, those are your two primary concerns. The heaviest of wind probably just went through the Alma area. Mountainburg, you've just endured the heaviest, the highest of the winds. Heavy rain continues there. Mulberry's next in line. You'll see those winds pick up there. Pleasant View, eventually down the line in Ozark, Watalula, Barnes as well. Probably going to see some heavy high winds. Not in the warning across Barnes or Ozark yet, but should this be extended further east, you probably end up there. We'll work our way down this line a little bit further. You get closer to Charleston, Fort Chaffee, Greenwood, Barling. That's where the highest winds, heaviest rain likely in the next 5 to 10 minutes as this progresses off towards the east there as well. If you're traveling anywhere along 64 or 40 or even 22 between Fort Smith and let's say Paris, you're probably going to be running into those high winds, 60 mile per hour. That's going to push you around a little bit. There's no question about that. We'll take a closer look in velocities. I want to make sure, while I think the tornado threat for the most part is probably over with, you look at a signature like this, you find this little notch, this little eddy. Should something try to develop, that's probably where it would be. Overall, that's not a concerning sign just yet north of Waldron. But it's certainly something I want to pay close attention to over the next few minutes. Hopefully nothing comes of it. There's just not much storm fuel really in the atmosphere that these storms really need, but there's so much wind shear that it may not take much at all. That area was going to be east of 71 there, getting into northeastern Scott County. Soon that'll eventually move into parts of Logan County near Tate. Watson as well. That's it for now. That's going to be the only little eddy, only little hook, at least in our neck of the woods. You can see that severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect. I keep thinking they may have to issue one for Northwest, just given those winds that are certainly impressive, especially moving into Bentonville and Rogers. 50 to 60 mile per hour can't be ruled out, in addition to the heavy rain that's moving through right now. So you got a little bit of a flooding issue on those roadways. You've got some high winds, and you very well probably have a little bit of hail mixing in at times. Not seen a lot of reports of hail, but seen a lot of reports of some high winds. 1 to 2 inches of rain coming down in a short amount of time. It's certainly not going to take much at all. Stephen, did you have some information on that flood advisory?
I was just looking at that flood advisory that we just took a look at was for parts of Oklahoma. The new one that we just got, though, includes area of Fort Smith, Springdale, Bentonville, Salem Springs, Poto, pretty much our entire viewing area that you were just saying. About a ½ inch up to 1 inch of rainfall has fallen. Now, on top of that, what we've got right now is just a very mess out there right now with a lot of heavy rainfall, what the National Weather Service is saying. Additionally, we could see about a ½ inch up to 1.5 inches more of rainfall, which would, of course, lead to the threat for some of that minor flooding. Now, Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert mentioned earlier is that we're not talking about that river flooding. Maybe some isolated areas, sure, but what we're talking about here is those low-lying areas. Geography plays a huge part in this. You know those low-lying areas, your neighborhoods and those streets, side roads as well. If they usually flood during events like this is that type of event now that it's turning into, that we could see some of that minor flooding from northwest Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and the river valley, even if you live west of that line of thunderstorms that Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's pointing out there. You live west of it, you're clear from the wind damage threat right now, but you've still got a lot of rainfall to work through as well, and that's going to be that 1 inch to 1.5 inches more of rainfall that could lead to some flooding concern. Take a look across the area, pretty much everywhere right now. Dark, gloomy, rainy, but also a few areas ahead of that line of thunderstorms, still very windy out there as well. Driving conditions not ideal when it gets like this, but overall, Fort Smith there, what you see, a little bit of rain on the camera there. Driving seems to be okay right in front of Mercy there. but you still see a lot of those dark clouds. That's because we still got a lot of rain to work through as well. Over the river there in Ozark, not too bad. Dark, gloomy, very rainy, but you also see some of that wind. If you get a close look at some of those treetops, you can see how strong that wind is there. And there in Fayetteville, of course, one of our new cameras there. Gorgeous shot there, and looking into campus, really nice new camera, but painting a good picture of just how much rainfall we're going to get. We knew that this was eventually going to be the trend that we were going to follow this morning, that we're going to have this very strong line of thunderstorms, but when it started to weaken, the system starts to spread out, the system starts to slow down, and then when it slowed us down, we were just talking about that actually yesterday. Important to reminder, this week is Severe Weather Awareness Week. Yesterday's topic was flooding, so everything we covered yesterday morning, that's what we've got for today. Flooding risk now, and they are updating that severe thunderstorm. Are they updating that, or is that just how that?
Yeah, I think that's just an update. I think they've trimmed parts of Fort Smith, the west side, out of that warning. Threat continued to slowly progress off towards the east. Okay, so current time, 9:12. I want to kind of recap what the heck are we doing here. There is a severe thunderstorm warning that remains in effect. You can see Doppler radar scanning that through parts of Crawford, soon to move into western Franklin County, Logan, and even parts of Scott County. That's the most intense part of the line. There is some high winds in northwest Arkansas. We're just going to stay on until the threat's entirely over. That's what we're doing here, okay? I don't want you thinking we're on because we're concerned that this is going to be a super high impact event. We're not looking at a big tornado outbreak. In fact, I'll tell you, by the minute our tornado potential continues to decrease. It was already pretty low to begin with, and now it's even lower. We just want to provide some comfort to the folks out there that may have a little bit of storm anxiety or may just look out the window and think, wow, it's really windy out there. What's going on? We just want to be here on Facebook, on YouTube, and most importantly on 5+, just to provide some insight as to what's happening. No current tornado warnings. There was a time in the day way back when tornado warnings were the only reason that you would see the meteorologist go on air or online. We don't have to do that anymore. Those severe thunderstorm warnings are just as concerning to us, and so we just want to be here just to provide some comfort and some insight as to what we're tracking. That's what we're looking at. Once this threat is entirely passed through the area, then we'll probably hop off, and it'll rain, probably continuing for the next few hours. I think by maybe noon, early afternoon, a lot of this first round pushes off towards the east. There could be some additional rain later this afternoon, scattered showers, maybe a clap of thunder, probably not severe. Snow potentially on the backside of the system later tonight, north of I-40. In the meantime, though, we'll focus here on what is severe and what is pressing, and it is going to be what is a weakening line of storms. What we'll do, we'll work our way from the north to the south. First in northwest Arkansas. Here's where that heaviest band of rain is. You can kind of pinpoint it. It's messy. A lot of heavy rain across northwest Arkansas. The heaviest, though, now moving into Bentonville, Bella Vista, Rogers soon, Lowell soon, Springdale now, Fayetteville now, Winslow now, Greenland now, all that pushing off towards the east, and that eventually moves into Carroll and Madison County. I know you got some rain out there right now, but as this narrow band moves your direction, expect those winds to pick up, perhaps up to about 50 miles per hour. In fact, yep, that's exactly what the Weather Service just said, 50 miles per hour out of that line segment. We get a little bit further towards the south, and we're coming up on when that warning is set to expire here in about a minute, right around 9:15. And at this point, it looks like they're probably, okay, they did. It's expired. This storm has weakened below severe limits. With that said, as this line now moves into parts of western Franklin County, western Logan County, 50-mile-per-hour winds are still going to be capable with this specific line itself, in addition to the rain, which is heavy, especially in the line, but even out ahead of it, you've got some moderate to heavy rainfall, and that's where you start to see a little bit of flash flooding become more of a concern. Back behind this line, so from Alma through Mountainburg, Fort Smith, Cowington, Pecola, Roland, Podo, Salisaw, Muldrow, Heavener and Worcester, you've got some rain moving your direction, but we're not expecting any severe weather. West of this line, I can give you the all clear. Now, east of this line, as it continues moving, can't do that just yet, but soon we will be able to. Well, there's nothing severe at the moment. I'd like to stay here on Plus for just a little bit longer, okay? Just to make sure nothing tries to spin up. We can do that. We don't have to worry about covering up programming and That's the great part about streaming these days is we can provide people information. If you want to tune in or if you want to hang out with us, we'd love to have you. But if you got other things to do, right now, nothing severe. Current time's 9:15. Our warnings have expired. There are some watches that are remaining in effect for the viewing area, and those are going to look like this. Tornado watch in effect for Scott and Polk County in our neck of the woods. Elsewhere across northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. On the Arkansas side, that's a severe thunderstorm watch in pink. Those are both set to expire at 11 o'clock this morning, but what you'll notice is as that line of intense rain and wind pushes further east, the severe weather threat drops off. The Weather Service is canceling these counties one row at a time, essentially. So soon what you're going to find is Washington, Benton, Washington, Crawford, Sebastian, probably going to be dropped from the watch. Eventually, the Weather Service out of Little Rock, who is responsible for covering Scott County, will drop Scott County from that tornado watch probably within the next 10 to 15 minutes, if I had to guess. Certainly, it's probably not going to run through 11 o'clock as it's initially was originally set to do. The threat now is going to be for Carroll, Madison, Crawford, Johnson, Logan counties. That's where we could see some of those winds. Even then, I think that window is closing, especially as these storms trying to really rain themselves out. We'll go back to live Doppler radar, and you can see that very narrow band of heavy rain. That's where those winds are going to be the strongest. We can peel back the layers of Doppler radar and we can say, hey, just show me what the winds are. This can be a little bit trippy to look at. There's a lot of colors. Generally speaking, reds and yellows, those are winds blowing away from the radar. These greens and blues, that's winds blowing towards the Fort Smith radar. If you were to get a couple of those really bright colors to co-locate or to kind of twist and spin, that would be some areas of rotation. I'm not seeing that. This is predominantly a damaging wind threat from here on out. We'll watch Scott County for the last little bit. Here's the leading edge of that line. It's moving into eastern Scott County, but once we pass over into Yell, we're done with that tornado potential for our neck of the woods. We'll want to watch this northern flank a little closely. It does look like there very well could be some high winds now pretty much running right on top of I-49. Soon that's passing towards the east, so heads up if you live east of 49 in Benton or Washington County. Winds are about to pick up. They're picking up now, and that's going to continue to be the case over the next few minutes. So that's what radar is suggesting to us in terms of wind. I keep going back to this just to make sure there's not a little eddy trying to develop. And at times there have been, but nothing has actually ever spun up for us, right? And that's the good news for us at this point. Had a little bit of damage trying to appear on Doppler radar earlier. Turns out it wasn't anything storm related. Radar just had a little bit of a hiccup. That's really good news for us. I'll tell you, when you look at the wind profiles of this system, you can't find a better wind profile to support tornadoes. But winds are only one ingredient when it comes to severe weather. There's really four main ones: shear, wind shear; lift, which is going to be the front that's moving through; instability; and moisture. The instability, or storm fuel, you can call it whatever you want, same thing. It was just really low. Had it been any higher at all, we would have been looking at a very different setup, a very different outcome from today. So while there are damaging winds, and there maintains some straight line winds coming out of this system, the fact that there is such low storm fuel tells us our tornado threat probably next to zero at this point. I wouldn't call it zero just yet, but we're certainly approaching that where we would feel safe to say that. We'll have to track this as it pushes a little bit further towards the east. Boy, it's messy out there. We needed some rain. That's some really good news, especially across parts of Benton County. Drought was starting to creep up. Every week we get a new drought monitor every Thursday. Drought had been slowly but surely increasing, despite the fact that we saw a little bit of snow in the last couple of weeks. When it all melted down, it just wasn't enough. So this is going to be a good soaking rain. Does it erase it entirely? Probably not, but it puts a dent into it, and that's really the most we can ask for at this point. Right now, nothing severe. If you're just now tuning in, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and on 5+. Been here all morning as these storms rolled through. And we just wanted to be a place that you could always come to get you through the storm. A lot of folks have storm anxiety, especially across parts of the area that were hard hit just less than a year ago. And so we just wanted to be here for you to make sure we can give you some information, pass along what we know as we know it, when we know it, just so you can make plans accordingly. High winds are our primary concern at this point. Now you've got these thunderstorm winds. These are convective winds, but here's the interesting thing. Once this batch of storms moves out of the area of low pressure that's responsible for this whole mess, it's not done with us just yet. And what I mean by that is what we're going to see today I'll put Futurecast winds into motion. This is going to be 9 o'clock this morning. This is kind of what we're dealing with now, right? But we go a little bit further. By lunchtime, we'll probably see a lull in the activity. I'll pause this here at noon. And what you'll notice, things are somewhat quiet out there. But look what's coming in from the southwest as this low pressure just off to our north in parts of Missouri, as it's going to intensify. It's going to be deepening. The low pressure is going to be deepening, and there's a lot of folks out there that can feel it coming, right? You hear that. There's actual science behind that. The aches and the pains of severe weather in these storm systems, that's real. And you probably feel that. You got headaches, you got some joint pain, you're taking that ibuprofen, you're grabbing that Bengay today. The weather is probably responsible for those aches and pains. It's also responsible for some really high winds that by later tonight, you can see that leading edge as that low intensifies. 30 to 40 miles per hour, but they continue to intensify overnight tonight into your Wednesday. We very well could see 50 mile per hour wind gusts, and these aren't because of a thunderstorm. These are just non-thunderstorm winds, all associated with that area of low pressure, 40 to 50 miles per hour. That'll be the trend into the overnight hours and probably through at least noon tomorrow. That's when our wind advisory starts to expire. This is 2:30, and while, yeah, it's not 40 to 50, it's still 30 to 40, right? It's going to be a breezy day. I think tomorrow's my trash day, and I don't know where my trash can is going to end up when I get home tomorrow afternoon. That's the type of wind we're talking about. If you got loose lawn furniture and today's storms haven't blown it around, you may want to take advantage of that lull in the activity by around noon today and secure it. Bring it inside if you can. That's certainly something you might want to do. Let's take another look at live radar. Have there been any changes at all? And the answer to that is, well, there's no new additional severe thunderstorm warnings. Our line of severe storms has really been weakening. It's fallen below severe limits. There is a narrow line, and you can kind of pinpoint it. We'll slow that down. That's going pretty quick for my liking. We'll slow it down. In fact, we'll just pause it in real time. That line extending from Bentonville, Rogers, Bella Vista through Fayetteville. It's soon to be pushing into Elkins and Goshen. War Eagle also probably going to see some winds pick up here real soon. Clifty, Hinesville, Huntsville. Eventually, this line moves your direction. Ozark, the winds are going to be picking up. Mulberry, you've got the most intense rain right now. Winds are somewhat high there. Probably 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gust. That's sub-severe. We're not meeting that severe criteria. Heavy rain in, let's say, Charleston, moving towards Branch. Eventually, that's going to move towards Clarksville into the Paris area. If you're traveling along 22, State Highway 22 this morning, it's going to be slow going out there. Take it safe. Be slow on the roadways. Heaviest of rain now moving in across parts of eastern Scott County, soon to pass into Yell County. And that's it. Back behind to the west of this line, yeah, there's going to be some rain continue, but it's just that. It's just rain. Could lead to some localized flash flooding, but in terms of severe weather, our concern is along this line and points off towards the east. Once it's eventually out of the area, we'll sound the all clear. Until then, we're going to hang out with you just to make sure nothing spins up. Let's give it about 10, 15 more minutes and see what those trends are. If this line continues to weaken as it has been, then I think we're going to be in good shape. In the meantime, we'll continue this stream. We'll bring Stephen Elmore back into play. First, though, let me ask this. Are we able to check in with the Stormchaser with Joshua Weisel? If anyone's up in the booth that could let me know that. Just a second. Okay, I'm told. Thank you so much. We'll see where Joshua is at. He was traveling along Highway 59 near Cedarville when the main line pushed through the area. He was in the right place at the right time, saw the most intense winds and rain. I suspect he's probably on the backside of that system now. It is picking up a little bit of forward motion. That's some good news. Maybe we can get those winds out of here a little bit quicker. Right now, though, nothing severe. That's the good news. I think we're on the downhill trend with this system. It was never going to be a super high impact event to begin with. Just enough of those ingredients overlapping with each other to produce the damaging wind that we were seeing. And we very well still could. I can't sound the all clear just yet, but I'll tell you, I'm with each passing minute, I'm feeling better and better about the outlook of the rest of the day. Right now, though, let's do this. Let's bring in, oh, we got Josh. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on in the Stormchaser. Joshua Weisel in Fort Smith in the 5 News Stormchaser heading towards Garrison Avenue. Joshua, what have you seen thus far?
So we are on Riverfront Drive, headed south towards Fort Smith. Haven't seen anything in terms of wind damage. None of those little small twigs or branches on the road like you typically see after some damaging wind moves through the area. So that's some good news there. What we have seen is off to the sides of the road, we have had small stream flooding across the area, even some ponding on the roadways. In fact, I'll turn this so you can kind of see as this car moves by, you can kind of see just a little bit of rain that is kicking up behind him. And then this truck up here, just a lot of water that it is kicking up behind it as we are following behind. But there's some of that stream flooding that I mentioned. It's really off to the side of the road. We have seen it's been moving at a pretty good pace, especially if it's on one of the hills. Really nothing too concerning in terms of any sort of severe weather down here. We have just light to moderate rainfall right now in this area. Winds have died down dramatically from what we were seeing earlier. The only thing that we're dealing with now is we're seeing some of that ponding on some roadways, and then some small stream flooding off to the sides of the roads, even some of the creeks and streams that run next to the roads as well. So we're watching that. Right now, I believe this is the U.S. Marshals Museum that we're passing. So we're headed into Fort Smith. We're going to check and see if the typical areas that flood around Fort Smith have any sort of issues going on right now. So we'll let you know if we see anything. So let's see. Here's that flag just to show you those winds have died down pretty dramatically over the last half hour or so after these storms have moved through. Other than that, we're going to continue to check and see if there's any sort of flooding issues in Fort Smith. Going to send it back to you.
Joshua Weisel in the 5 News Stormchaser. Let's take a look at some of our cameras across the area. We'll start in Bentonville, looking along Walton Boulevard. Winds are breezy, but the rain's starting to let up just a bit. The heaviest has passed off to our east. There I am, like magic, coming back and forth. We'll take another look into Fayetteville, looking towards Old Main. This is from the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce camera situated in downtown Fayetteville, pointing towards Old Main. Kind of a gloomy day out there. You're going to want the rain gear, even though the severe weather threat coming to an end, starting to wind down. Rain's probably going to continue for the next few hours. We'll shift our focus to some of those low-lying areas that are more prone to some flooding. With rain levels probably going to be a little bit lighter on the backside of the storm. We'll have to watch for flash flooding for the next couple of hours, but then I think by this afternoon we're probably going to be in okay shape. Our Holiday Inn camera looking at I-49 in Springdale, heaviest of which now passing off to the east of there. We have a live look from the Marshals Museum in Fort Smith, where Joshua just was. Temperatures sitting around 56, 57 degrees. So somewhat of a mild day. It's a little bit humid out there. Kind of had that feel to the air, right? Looking really into the heart of one of the stronger areas from Ozark. We're looking off towards the southeast. That's going to be looking into the cell on the backside of it. In Fort Smith, those skies are a little bit lighter out there. Rain's starting to taper down. It'll take some time. You're still going to see some rain showers over the next several hours there along Rogers Avenue. We're in good shape. I had some reporting of some localized flooding near Zero Street. Pretty normal areas that often see that flooding. Whether you not get a little bit of rain or a lot of rain, that's what we're looking at out there here this evening. We'll back this up. Live radar over the last 2 hours, and you'll see that we're maintaining that very narrow band of some heavy rain and a little bit of wind, all pushing through parts of Benton. You can see it in eastern Washington County, now moving through a good chunk of central Franklin County, extending into Logan and eastern Scott counties. It's this band right here, 40, maybe upwards of 50-mile-per-hour winds. That's down from 70 earlier when it was in East Oklahoma, crossed the state line, around 60-mile-per-hour winds. Now we're down to about 40 miles an hour. So things are really wrapping up. To get a severe thunderstorm warning, you need winds at least 58 or more, and we're not seeing that. The area that this is moving into, the environment, is just not going to support severe weather at this point. So I'd say we're probably, let's see, current time's 9:30. Let's give this about 5 to 10 more minutes, and then we'll sound the all clear. In the meantime, we'll stick with it. We'll keep tracking these storms through the area just to give you some peace of mind. Just a temperature check here. We're not too concerned with severe weather at this point, but we just wanted to be here as a resource to you and give you information as we know it when we know it. One of the issues that we're looking at out there right now, a little bit of traffic. You got a heavy rain, you got a thunderstorm moving through, blowing winds 40 to 50 miles per hour. It's pretty common to get some backups. This is a live look in Fort Smith along I-540. We're looking northbound near Rogers Avenue, and you can see the northbound lane there, slow going, stop and go traffic as a result of what I suspect is maybe an accident. Looks like we've got a car rolled over on the shoulder there as well. So that's going to be a concern that we see over the next little bit, just given the fact that we can't drive when it's dry, can't drive when it's storming either. Be safe out there. Use those headlights if you got the windshield wipers on. Some more good news to pass along to you. Looks like the Weather Service is telling me they're about to drop the severe thunderstorm watch. So what you'll see here is it has been entirely dropped for East Oklahoma. The remaining counties here that are in pink, that's probably going to fall off the map here real soon. Weather Service is probably typing that up right now. They'll push it out and it'll fall off our map. And that kind of goes to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago, that these storms are just moving into an environment in which the atmosphere is stable. And that's a good thing. It's the unstable atmosphere that you can see some severe storms develop in, and that's not the case where we're at right now. Things are on the downward trend. The further east these storms go, the weaker they're likely going to become. That's not to say you might not get some gusty winds out there over the next couple of hours. That's a real possibility, but we're further from severe weather criteria than we were even just 10 minutes ago. That's good news. As those storms shift off towards the east, you look back behind it, and we do have rain even extending back towards Tulsa, McAllister, closer to McAllister anyways. A lot of this is going to keep pushing our direction east-northeast, so watch for a little bit of flash flooding out there. That's going to be the big focus that we're going to be tracking over the next few hours. Right now, though, current time's 9:32, no active severe thunderstorm warnings, no active tornado warnings. Watches are being dropped by the minute. Weather Service 9:30 told me, so that was about 2 minutes ago, that they're going to be dropping the severe thunderstorm warning. I suspect that'll happen anytime now. Meteorologist Stephen Elmore, let's bring you back into the picture. I'm going to let you walk us through what the rest of the day has in store, because there's a lot more to this event than just the severe weather. There's some snow tonight, and there's some really high non-thunderstorm winds, which are likely to be just as impactful. Stephen.
Yeah, by the time we get these thunderstorms out of here, at least that line of thunderstorms, not necessarily all in the clear just yet. While we are going to enter into that lull, we still have to think about what's to come the rest of this afternoon into the evening hours, and then, of course, overnight. So here's where we are right now, just shy of or just after 9:30 now. What we have right now is those two special weather statements. One was recently issued just about, let's see here, about 10 minutes ago for parts of Benton County. Again, those winds out in front of that line of thunderstorms, really not too bad. Right around 30 to 45 mile per hour wind gusts is what you could find. But the good news is this continues to weaken throughout the rest of the day today. Just going to be turning into that rain event. Joshua Wiesel is working on trying to find if there's any of that flooding concern throughout the Fort Smith area right now. But then our attention turns to the wind that's coming overnight tonight. So here's a look at Futurecast. Here's a look at about 11 o'clock going into the late morning hours, early afternoon. You see that line of thunderstorms well off towards the east by now, and then we enter to this lull afternoon where more than likely, sure, we can have a few stray showers here and there, mainly towards our east, but as we get into the late afternoon hours, early evening, you can find a few spotty showers here and there. If we get some sunshine to break out, which more than likely not going to see a lot, but if we do, you could start to see some energy build back up. Maybe you get another strong storm by the time we get to the late afternoon, early evening hours, but outside of what we have this morning, that doesn't look ideal. A lot of that energy used up. But once a system starts to wrap around, what it's doing is bringing in that moisture on the backside of the system, and with that is some colder air. So here's a look at 10:30 tonight. More of those scattered showers in northwest Arkansas, but as temperatures drop during the overnight hours into early tomorrow morning, what you find is a transition between the rain over into some of that wintry mix and some snowflakes, of course, like we talk about with these when we talk about winter systems is the difference between 33 and 32. More than likely, we're going to be hovering right around that 32-degree mark. And so what could happen there is we could see a little bit of that wintry mix, maybe eventually some of those snowflakes. I'm getting those notifications on my phone right now about them, the National Weather Service dropping those watches, including the tornado watch there in Scott County. So I'm going to go and see if our systems have populated that just yet. Still working on the thunderstorm watch, highlighted in pink there, but the good news is, for our viewing area, no more of those tornado watches. They were scheduled to go out until 11 a.m. Good news is we've decreased that threat so much that they've eliminated that watch. We'll wait to see what happens with that severe thunderstorm watch. That's going to continue. It looks like they trim maybe some counties, not others. For that severe thunderstorm watch. We'll keep an eye on it here. Let's continue talking about what comes for the rest of the night tonight into tomorrow morning. And we talked about those snowflakes, mainly northwest Arkansas, little to no accumulation. But don't be surprised you wake up tomorrow morning, maybe you find a little bit of a dusting here and there. But the wind threat overnight tonight is what could be a bit concerning. These are non-thunderstorm winds, and I'll show you what one model is showing us what could happen. This is what we have out there right now. We enter into this lull where winds start to die down briefly, but by the time we get to the evening hours, start to pick back up, and by 9, 10 o'clock, we have some really strong winds now coming out of the northwest, and that's going to help cool down those temperatures, but it's also going to pick up in speed. Non-thunderstorm winds going to pick up anywhere between up to 35 up to 45 miles per hour this evening, but by the time we get to tomorrow morning, they continue to intensify to the point where as you head out the door tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., 7:30, we're thinking about that bus stop for tomorrow morning. Well, you're not going to be dealing with any thunderstorms. The winds will sure feel like there has to be something. We could see those wind gusts as high as 40 up to 50 miles per hour. That, of course, can cause some issues of its own. Actually, one thing that I haven't checked out, we haven't heard anything from the studio. I'm going to check offhand here, is power outages.
Stephen, I was just looking at those. You just, I'll talk over that. Very minimal. In Benton County, we've got 6. We've got 24 folks without power in Washington County. Crawford up to 28. Sebastian at 62 folks. Scott County with 49. We go over into East Oklahoma, and it's pretty similar. There's a few here and there, 125 in Sequoia County. Those storm winds were a little stronger in East Oklahoma, and in LaFleur County, we're up to 324 folks without power. We hate it for you, but certainly those are some lower numbers than what it could have been.
Yeah, definitely had some strong winds further out towards the west, parts of central and eastern Oklahoma. But as that line of thunderstorms continued to track our direction, what we saw is that band become thinner, and less of that instability. We definitely had some strong storms come through, but like Scott has been mentioning all morning, what could have been, we had definitely had a lot of the ingredients for what could have been a very impactful day. It just didn't add up, and that's a good thing for us. We're dealing with a lot of rainfall right now, much needed rainfall. Still, parts of Carroll, parts of Madison, parts of Franklin County right now, seeing some of those stronger winds, not severe. 30, 40 mile an hour wind gusts, definitely possible though. Out ahead of that line, you can see that line there splitting across portions of eastern Benton County, eastern Washington County, and then through the river Valley, crossing over I-40 as well. You live west of that, you're all in the clear, just outside of some rainfall throughout the rest of the day. When it comes to the mid-morning hours, by the time we get to the afternoon and evening, start to lighten up that rain. But those winds, 40 to 50 mile an hour non-thunderstorm winds, Scott, that is something we don't see very often. Definitely a unique situation. Tomorrow morning could be very interesting. Non-thunderstorm winds up to 50 miles per hour. You got to think about that bus stop for tomorrow.
Yeah, no question about it. 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, those are gusts, not necessarily sustained, but enough and for a prolonged period of time that we could see some additional power outages. That's going to be tonight into tomorrow morning. Wind advisory in effect for the entire viewing area. So that just goes to show you how strong this storm system is. Severe weather this morning, snow tonight, high winds for about a 12-hour period. So keep that all in mind. We'll be providing frequent updates right here on 5 News, online.com, 5+, as well as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it, we're there, and we'll keep you posted as we learn new updates. I think that's going to do it for us. You've still got heavy rain, but that's all this is at this point. This is good good old napping weather. Hope you're at home, able to take a nap and not at work in the office, in the cubicle. Otherwise, it may be a little bit of a longer day to get through. Thanks for joining us here. Severe weather threat has come to an end for those of us in Northwest Arkansas, the River Valley. Thank you for trusting us with your severe weather coverage for today. Wanted to be here all morning long just in case something got hairy for you. Thankfully, we avoided what could have been a more serious storm. We'll be back here on your 5 News at noon with the latest radar and Futurecast for tonight's storm. For meteorologist Stephen Elmore, Joshua Weisel out in the field in the Stormchaser this morning, and all of us here at 5 News, I'm Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert.